All right, welcome everybody. Welcome. There's the intro that if you guys are here on TikTok, you're seeing that for the very first time because that intro was not being played on this platform. So there's the intro, but it looks like the music wasn't playing right away there, so I'll find out on the recording. Looks like I have to have, and I probably have my microphone probably giving me a double sound as well, right? Says I don't have any microphone playing at all. That's weird. Let me check the sound here and see what's going on. I'm not quite sure why. The sound's off. That's why. Okay. Not quite sure why. Yeah, see, so it's saying I got a double sound now because the microphone came on another device, didn't it? Yes, it did. So hold on, let me mute this one. I guess when I turn on it, or maybe it defaulted and I didn't check it, I apologize for that. But I was also trying to play the music, so I'll have to check it on the recording. So I apologize. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome in. Sorry about that. Doing a little bit of technical difficulty. Trying to play my intro video for Orion Rising, and I don't think the audio was working right away. And then, sorry, a train going by. And then it looks like that I defaulted to two microphones, so I might have had three microphones going at the same time there. Welcome in, right? Okay, so smash those hearts for me, champions, so we can get some people in here. And as you can see here, ask your spiritual questions. I haven't been live for like 10 or 11 days. Been busy doing some stuff, right? Getting our website up. So that's kind of cool and interesting. Teaching a lot of courses and doing psychic readings, kind of slowing things down for me going live because I've been going live almost every day, right? See, my voice is already messed up. It's already been doing that. So welcome aboard. Welcome, everybody. Say hello in the chat. Let me know you're here. Ask me your spiritual questions. Otherwise, I'll just get talking. And let me close this darn thing over here. They always put that overlay up, and I don't know why they do that overlay, so I can see what you guys are doing. I think it leaves the chat up longer, but it just gets in kind of in the way of me taking a look at things. Studio for TikTok is not exactly the greatest studio. There's a lot of good features for it. It's a decent studio, but the way they have it organized, it's kind of slow. Okay, so welcome, right? This is Orion Rising, right? Merlin and Maeve presenting Orion Rising. I am Leonard O'Neill, and I am channeling Kelto from the 11th dimension for your entertainment purposes, to answer your guys' spiritual questions. Sometimes it, gets people excited, and sometimes it gets them pretty annoyed, right, when I'm answering questions. Okay, so let's talk about a few things that are going on right now in the world, right? I'm not going to talk about politics because that's just a religion that is part of the ecosystem, but I can talk about that ecosystem. A lot of people are starting to catch on because people, there's people out there. There's a lot of people out there that are very angry, and the ones that are waking up and they're saying things like, "Oh no, we have to defend the earth. The bad guys are going to take over the earth," and the earth it's just not true. The earth isn't going to be obliterated. The bad guys aren't going to take it over because this is an ecosystem that was set up this way. And I talked about this a couple weeks ago, and it looks like other people are picking up on it and started talking about it around the internet, which is good because you guys need to raise your vibration and move past the idea that there's a war going on between good and evil. I mean, there kind of is in the societal structure, but that's just the push and pull of those people who are in service to self and those people who are in service to others. It's just the dichotomy. That part of what happens is normal. So you're not going to ever defeat it. So you're not going to ever defeat evil, completely annihilate it, and have no evil on the earth. It just doesn't work that way. This is an ecosystem that the Creator set up to be this way. But you can take back the control that evil people have taken away from the population of the planet. That's actually happening. That will be completely solidified by the time we hit 2050. The bad guys that are on this earth, the powers that should not be, as I hit the finger quotes, they're already waning with their power, and they're getting desperate and doing things to try and solidify their control or get everybody to go back to sleep, right? They tried it with that thing that we had, remember the thing where we had to distance ourselves? There's certain words I can't say because this platform is owned by communists, and they don't like free speech, free thinking, or religion of anything, or spirituality in any way. So words have become the weapon of the universe, and control of words has now become the mainstay by evil people, not just controlling you in many different ways by programming you, but now programming what you can say. And soon they're trying to program what you think, right? They're trying to program what you think. And the way you react to that will be determined by yourself, and whether or not you continue to stay under their control is also determined by you. You just don't know it because they've taken that information away from you. So you have to realize that this is an ecosystem. This is a matrix that they have, the whole purpose of what they're doing is misinformation, disinformation, and then telling you that your misinformation, disinformation. It's kind of like telling you global warming is happening, right? And they're telling you that you're the problem while they fly their jets, and all the rich people fly on their own private jet, which puts out, 400 times more carbon than 100 people do in a year. Not to mention governments and their, working and building things in the factories, and the jet aircraft and the diesel engines on the ships and stuff that they use, and trains. You know what I mean? Does marijuana help in meditation? Sometimes, yes, it can, if you know what you're doing with it. If you get too much THC, back in the day, that was, I'm 58, so back in the day, that was what we were going for. We were going for THC above 100, right? So if you have a lot of THC, then you're going to be indica, couch, right? So you're going to be, really high. Why do you think they call it high, by the way? But if you can handle that, then it actually does help. A lot of things help. Caffeine helps with meditation, believe it or not. The monks in ancient times would drink tea so they wouldn't fall asleep while they're trying to meditate. However, what you're trying to achieve is raising your vibration to that place. And yes, those other things do as well, that you can, you can get like Blue Lotus tea and drink that. It also raises your vibration to that place where the thinking mind, the ego, and the conscience is a little quieter, quiets the mind. So the same effect happens with, the THC and the CBD that is in that marijuana and stuff like that. What is the best way to ground when you feel everything? Okay. So if you're feeling everything, you're probably an empath, right? So you got some work to do to get that stuff out away from you and protect yourself. If you're feeling everything, but just grounding in general is kind of difficult with everything that's being bombarding us, right? All this stuff bombarding us, and television, the internet, all over the world. We have more access to information in a very short period of time. Since 1991 until now, we've had the total access to everything going on in the world, right now at our fingertips. So we're not ready for it because things were so much slower before. This is a fast pace. Television has moved that way. Movies have moved that way. Everything has. So we're being bombarded with so much information that we're having a hard time, thinking straight. Some people have to turn the radio down so they can concentrate on driving. You know what I mean? In that sense. So grounding is very important. One of the things that we teach everybody immediately is like turn off all of your devices at some point during the day, and then go out into nature. Take nature walks. Just go for walks. And, if you can, get away from people and go to a park where it's a little more quiet. And then like turn off all your notifications on your phone, even vibration, turn it off, or turn your phone off so that you can actually feel nature. That'll help you ground. Once you get used to doing that and you realize what that feels like to actually be grounded, it becomes easier then to ground yourself. Okay. But if you're an empath, you've got a lot of work, because you have to remember that the icky stuff's not yours. Any emotion, even if you're taking something to help someone, it's not yours. My wife, if Brooke were here, she would tell you that as well. But she was having problems, not realizing how to let the emotions go that had bottled up inside of her for a while, right? And then she had what she called a regurgitation. Because it would all just spill out. She would start kicking over tables like Jesus, she'd start just, and it would all come out. So the minute that we met, I was like, oh, baby, you don't have to do that. Let me take that away from you. Let me show you how you can let that go. So if you're empathic and you're feeling emotions, anger, and everything else that's going on from the world, from television, from the legacy news media, you're on a long line in a store or a bank and you're picking up on everybody's stuff, you got to start putting up barriers. You got to say, this is not mine. I don't need to keep that, and release that back to the ether, to the world, to the universe, to the source. release this. This is not all. I only have my emotions. My emotions and my feelings are mine. Everyone else's are not mine, and I will let them wash over me and away from me. They will exit me, and you have to tell yourself that they'll exit me, right? So thank you. Truth frequency, sending positive vibes, right? Yeah, sending positive vibes over there. Because the negative can build up. Brooke is an empath, and some days she comes in and she's just like, whoa, man. I'm like, hold on, let me center you, let me focus you, let me balance you. You know what I mean? But we all forget. Sometimes I get that way, and Brooke has to grab me and go, hey, whoa, come back to me here for a second. You've gotten too far into whatever. So that happens to all of us, and we have to constantly remind ourselves self-care is important, right? Self-care is important. It's one of the things we teach in Reiki. I'm a Reiki master, so is my wife. I point like she's over here sitting here, but she's not. She's at work. She'll be back in a couple of hours. But both of us teach that to people. Reiki 1 is about self-care. It's about learning to force you to actually do self-care. So Reiki 1, if you become a Reiki healer, the first attunement and the time in between the first attunement and going to the second attunement, if you choose to do that, is about self-care. It's about remembering to take care of yourself, because we get people who are in service to others will get into those industries in some ways, and we're always serving other people, and we forget to serve ourselves, right? And if you're serving, only people who are really in service to others will see that and say, hey, wait, like what just happened here, sending some positive vibes. We have to remember to do that for ourselves. We always forget to take care of the self as well. It doesn't mean you're self-serving to take care of yourself. You can't truly be in service to others without learning how to care for yourself. If you guys ever flown at all, sorry, my phone's getting some notifications. I'm taking a look at them. If you've ever flown at all, you know that, because that's what they tell you on the flights. They'll tell you, if something happens and the oxygen masks come down, put yours on first before you start helping other people, because you can't help other people if you don't help yourself first, right? So the same thing happens. In self, in self-preservation in life in general. When it comes to being a person who's in service to others, and you're trying to heal people, and if you don't take care of yourself, then you're a mess and you can't heal them right, right? Sorry, my wife just announced. She just told me that she was going for a new job at her company, and she was going back to work today to go have a job interview. And I said, I hope they tell you get the job before you leave, because she's going to go on vacation after today. She's taking 3 weeks off, right? So she just announced to me, that's what something told me to look over here. So I picked up my phone and I'm looking, and she said, I just had the interview. I got the job. I start as soon as we get back from vacation. So I'm telling her congratulations. So give me one moment, guys. I wish she was here live when we found this out, right? But let me give my wife a congratulations, so that she knows that and I'm announcing it to you guys. So if you guys are fans of Brooke, if you follow Brooke, and make sure you give her a congratulations on whatever platform that you follow her on, or on, Merlin May, say congratulations, Brooke, for the new job, because I don't know if she realizes that I'm live right now. So, I'm announcing it live to the whole world, and she just found out herself. All right, so I'm happy for my wife, because she's got a promotion and she's going to be doing office work instead of running around on the sales floor, which she's far more suited for it mentally. But she'd do all that. But, it comes a time in your life when you got to start thinking about, maybe I'm not supposed to be doing physical work like that for the rest of my life. Maybe I should start, looking at becoming a manager or owning my own company. I did that. I was in my 40s. I was in my 30s and I was planning it. I was like, I'm doing all this, work, because at that time I was doing contracting work, and I'm like, I need to become the contractor, right? So then I realized that I could do that without becoming a contractor. I could become the money behind everything, and that way I didn't have to do any work. I just needed to be the money. So I became the lender. I became a person who invested in people. So I'm an investor. I didn't invest in companies, but I kind of did, because I invest in people. And you know what I mean? So sometimes I work with companies and I invest in companies. Now I'm invested in our company, Merlin and Maeve, right? There's our email right there. Boom. And our website is up. We've been working on it. It's small right now. It just says like a page as you scroll down right now, and links to all of our platforms that we're on right now. But there is a website that's up, and we've got to finish that. We're tinkering with that. It drives my wife crazy when she's trying to work on it. So I'm going to probably start working on that now that vacation is here. We're going to take vacation, and we're going to do a couple of manuals that we have to do, and we're going to be, of course, I'll be teaching you guys. So I'll be live and I'll be teaching courses. So if you guys are interested in any courses, email us. You can see them here. Defense Against the Dark Arts coming up. If you guys are interested in Defense Against the Dark Arts, which is our most popular class, you can see it right here on the screen. We have one tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow and the next day. It's a 2-day, 4 hours a day class on Zoom. If you guys are interested, it's 88 Australian dollars. So if you're in the United States, if you're on the dollar, the pound, or the euro, that $88 right now, I think, is about 55 to 58. It depends on how good your dollar is, but your dollar is way better than ours. So that 88 is only about 58 to 63, depending on where you're at. Unless you're like in New Zealand, then that 88 is like 110 or something. Or the Philippines, and it's like thousands of Filipino, whatever they're called. Right? So if you guys are interested in that, and you want to learn how to do some of those things, ground yourself, protect yourself, just like we were talking about already. If you want to learn that, how to identify the different things that are happening around the world that could happen to you. Literally, I've been doing this for over 30 years, almost 40 years now. I've been teaching this, so I have this long list of here's all the different things that can happen to you. Will all of those happen to you in your lifetime? These days, it's hard to say no to that, because there's a lot of crap that's going on by a lot of evil people that are trying to keep everybody asleep and put everybody back to sleep. But hopefully not a lot of that, not every part of that you get hit with. Everything I talk about, I was hit with. Okay. Those are all, everything that I talk about and the different things are things that I knew about from experience, not from hearing it from other people, and been teaching it for like almost 40 years. So very close to it. If I'm 58, it's been about 40 years since I've been teaching it. Probably longer than that now, because I started teaching it when I was in my 20s. So very possible that I'm 45 or so years. Anyway, if you're interested in identifying, the whole first day is identifying all the negative crap that's going on that can happen to you. Okay, and if you're an empath, there's one right there, being empathic. You need to know how to cleanse that stuff, and then how to reflect that energy and be able to see the energy and pick up on it, but not keep it. Same thing with energy vampires. Do you know what that is? People casting spells, evil spells, good spells that's gone bad, stuff like that. Different things, propaganda on television, gaslighting, all of that. First day is us showing you here's all the things that they can do to you. Okay, here's all the things they are doing to you around the world right now, constantly, 24 hours a day, not to mention putting stuff in our food, blah, 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 right? You want to learn about that. You want to learn how to identify it, see it, defend against it, balance yourself, protect yourself, reflect all of that energy. Defense Against the Dark Arts. First day is here, first thing of avoiding a trap is knowing of its existence. The first day is telling you this is the trap, man. This is all the stuff they're doing. And the second day is here's how you fix all that and get out of that. So if you guys are interested in that, right here, you guys can pop in. If you guys get us an email today, we'll send you an invoice. You get that paid today, you'll get the link for tomorrow. It'll be tomorrow at 8 o'clock our time, and I'm in Sydney, Australia. So that's like 1 or 2 p.m. West Coast America right now, because we just did the time change, right? So we literally did the time change on Sunday. So because we're over here, we do it different than when you guys do. So we just fell back an hour over here. So I'm getting used to the rest of the world. But if you guys are interested in that, cut us an email today. We'll get the invoice out to you today. You get that paid today, tomorrow, because it'll be our 9th. It's your 8th tomorrow. And it will be the first day. So if you guys are interested in that, send us an email. Okay. So we teach all of that stuff. You can also see on the screen right there, all the psychic development courses. We teach all of that stuff that's over there. And then this, of course, is Orion Rising, which is my podcast. So you guys can see that right there. And that's the book, my book that I've written, The Reality About Reality, Returning to the Old Ways. And there's our logo, Merlin and Maeve. That's my wife and I's company. Okay. So if I missed any questions just now, I apologize. Well, because I was talking. So say hi when you guys pop in. Smash a heart or two before you take off. Maybe send this live to somebody that you might think might be interested in something that I'm talking about in spirituality, even global politics. Not religion, because religion recruits you. Spirituality waits for you to find it. Right? Know that I am, if you guys read my bio, I am a 4-time minister. I have a minister title in 4 different religions. I was knighted by the Roman Catholic Church. I'm a Reiki master. So that gives me 5 spiritual titles. Wrote a book about it. I'm a theologian, wrote a book about what's going on in the world and what's happening. That's why I call it the reality about reality, returning to the old ways. Because you guys are starting to learn about it now. People are starting to talk about it, especially with the Bible coming out of Ethiopia, the Ethiopian Bible, and people are actually starting to get a hold of that in the West, where before you had to have permission from them to go over there and study it, and now they're publishing it in English and putting it out for the world, which I am going to buy a copy of it, by the way, because I want to actually see for myself all of the books that I'm pretty sure that they took out that I know are in that. But I want to see what their version of the wording is and check the translation. And I don't know Ethiopian. It's a form of Swahili, which is a form of Sanskrit. So I don't know that language. I may have to teach myself that language so that I can check that. Because I do that. I'm a nerd, right? I speak 28 languages. I taught myself Middle French or Old French from the 1500s, 1400s, because I wanted to make sure that people were translating Nostradamus properly. That's no word of a lie. That was back in the 1980s, going into the 1990s. I was like, I need to learn Old French because I don't trust these people in the way that they're translating things. So I learned it so that I could translate, make sure that they were translating it. And people were taking, they were taking liberties with words. They do it all the time. I just put out a video on my pages talking about Zecharia Sitchin and the Anunnaki. And what you guys think that word means. It doesn't mean anything what does not mean an alien species at all, never has. But Zecharia Sitchin in 1947 and 1948, coming forward to the 1970s, wrote 6 books where he just made stuff up and claimed that it was a true story. And there's people, I posted a bunch of videos on my Facebook page. So if you go to Leonard O'Neill on Facebook page, on my Facebook page, and I don't know exactly let me find out. Sorry, there's a train going by out there. I'm sure you guys can hear that. I think it's, I'm thinking about my Facebook page now. I apologize. I normally have a link to that, right? But I don't have it. So I'm going to go on my Facebook page here and see what the link is. Because I know that I'm actually not just, you can look up Leonard O'Neill and see the Merlin and Maeve logo in the background, right? There's the Merlin and Maeve logo. There's me in my picture, right? Leonard O'Neill right there. So if you go to that page on Facebook, I don't know if some people are like, I don't like Facebook. I don't have the other videos on YouTube, or I don't have them linked anywhere else. But I do have like the Danny Jones. Here, let me put this up on the screen. Where's this camera? The Danny Jones video with Matthew LaCroix. I cut out part. You'll see that on Facebook. Click on that. It takes you to the Danny Jones podcast where Matt LaCroix was on there. And I cut out the 1-minute part where they're literally talking about Zecharia Sitchin and his translation being completely false. So it's not just me saying this. It's academia. Then if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see 3 more videos where people are just basically telling the world that everything that Zecharia Sitchin said was false. So Giorgio Tsoukalos at the History Channel's, from Prometheus, History Channel being run by Disney, when they were doing Ancient Aliens, which he's a friend of mine, by the way. He and I don't get along when it comes to that. He just went and continued like as if Zecharia Sitchin was God and said those from the heavens came, and that was all of History Channel's proof that there were aliens here, and all of it was made up by Zecharia Sitchin. That's been proven throughout the years. It was already wrong when he said it. He said it in 1948. The story of Gilgamesh was already translated in the 1800s, right? So, you guys gotta take a look at that stuff. I have a list. I usually tell you guys I have a list of the names of the people. He mentions one of them in that clip that I cut out. That's just it'll actually take you to the video, and you can actually press on the button and watch the entire video, the whole entire interview. He's got 2 more interviews coming up because he just released a book I'm friends with him on Facebook, but I've never met him. I hope to meet him because he is another person who's on the cutting edge of talking about this stuff like I am, because he's learned the stuff that I know, right? I know these things. He's learning these things about what's going on in the world and all of the stuff that's there, which I talk about in my book, where I translate this stuff for you guys, or you guys can listen to my podcast, which is on YouTube, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. No, it's not on TikTok, but my podcast is all over the world. Anywhere you listen to MP3 podcasts is listened to in 70 countries. It's on Apple Podcasts. It's on Podbean. It's on Podcast Addict. It's on like all over the world. It's listened to in 70 countries. So those are there for free if you guys want to listen to those, or you can buy my book. Right, that's online everywhere. There's a link to that in our bio here. You can also go, and I'm saying these things, and I'm sure that TikTok's going to lower the population because I said that. But you can go on my Facebook page, and there is a link to my publisher where you can get the hardcover, softcover, or you can get the ebook. The ebook's like $4 American, $5 American, right? So yeah, Lloyd, there's nothing wrong with Jesus. Jesus is the way. Jesus is one of the people who came here to tell you that. I talk about that in this book. I talk about the Christ oil, the Christos, the Christ within. I talk about that in my book. I talk about it on my podcast. I talked about it the last time I was live. I actually cut out one of the parts where I was talking about that and posted it. So it's on this platform and all other platforms where I talk about Jesus and Mary. And people in the church don't like that because they get annoyed. I'm going to take a drink of my coffee. TikTok, this is not alcohol. This is coffee. I do not drink alcohol. I do not drink alcohol. I haven't drank alcohol for more than 4 years. I do not drink alcohol. I do not imbibe alcohol. Okay. So I was knighted by the Roman Catholic Church. The Catholic Church. Most people don't even know what that word means, Catholicism or Catholic. Then people don't even realize what that means. But I was knighted by the Roman Catholic Church. But yeah, they're just saying their name, right? They're doing a lot, right? Yes, it does, Lloyd. Yes, it does. Are you Catholic? You must be Catholic because most people don't know that unless you're a theologian or Catholic, right? It means universal. Yeah, it does. Yeah, I actually got my minister title in 2016 from the Universal Life Church in Phoenix, Arizona. When you say that to people, they don't realize. I'm like, that's Universal Life Church. That's a non-Roman Catholic version of the Catholic Church. Otherwise, they wouldn't call themselves Universal Life, right? You are okay. So yes, I was raised Roman Catholic, and I was baptized Roman Catholic. I didn't get baptized until 2004. But I would tell everybody, if you were baptized as a child, go through it again. Just because that you don't really truly know what it is like if you're a baby, because you don't remember it, unless you're like me, where you're awake enough to remember that, right? So you were born in 2004. I was actually knighted on the day that Saint John Paul II passed. So I'm actually one of the 40 knights around the world that were knighted on the day of his feast, now that he's a saint, right? So he was very important to the Knights of Columbus. So I'm very proud to say that I was knighted right after we found out about it. We were getting ready. We were mustering to get ready to go in to be knighted, and we were out in the parking lot. And back then we didn't have cell phones. We did, but we didn't have smartphones. So everybody's pagers and Blackberries and stuff and cell phones were going crazy. And we found out that he had passed, and then we all did a prayer for him, and then we went in and got knighted on that day. So it's very important for some of us who are knights to have been knighted on the day of his feast. So because he's sainted, right? So that's kind of cool, right? It's something to remember, truly, because of that. And they even told us that at the time. They had the wherewithal in that moment to come out after we said a prayer and said, on the upside of things, for those of you who are here, because we were the only knights in America that were being knighted, in the North American continent, they were being knighted. There was 40 of us that day, and we were in the state of California. I'm in New South Wales now. I'm pointing to the direction of the United States. I'm over in Australia, but we were up in what is the name of the city? It's just north of Sacramento. I can't think of the name of it. I just lived right below it. I lived in Carmichael, I was taking care of my mom before I came over here. She was in Carmichael, and it's the next town up, next city up, at Roseville. We were ignited in Roseville, California, on that day. Okay, so however, I'm a recovering Catholic now because I didn't agree with a lot of the decisions that the church was making. And some of the knights, there was a civil war within the Knights of Columbus because some of them were defending the church first, and some of us took our creed serious going back thousands of years, to defend the people before the church. So some of us, I ended up leaving the church, and but before that, I was trying to bring light to everything that was going on. However, I don't want to get involved in all of that politics, but yeah, the Roman Catholic Church, a lot of people, Vatican archives, and what do they know, when do they know it, and who are they controlling? Right. So I have issue with that church anyways, because when Constantine got a hold of it in 329, he, changed the religion. He changed the whole entire way that Jesus was teaching into the religion that it is today, where they're just teaching the book of Romans. They don't even teach you the Acts of the Apostles anymore. Why is that? Because that was the way, and that was they were continuing the way. So they don't want you to know that stuff anymore. So they took away the sacred feminine, said that Mary was a hooker. Pope John Paul II ended that little ditty and said that was a lie when it was made up in the 1100s, and it's still a lie today. She was not. People are still having issues with it, though, but people are learning about that as well. So you think he was committing heresy in a way morally? Are you talking about Jesus? Well, according to the Sanhedrin at the time, he was, and according to, or unless you're talking about Constantine, yes. The answer to that question is yes. Constantine, yes. Jesus, if you're talking about that, in some respects, in today's court of the Roman Catholic Church, Jesus would still be considered a heresy. Just to be teaching the way he was teaching, it would still be considered heretical because of how far the church has come away from that teaching. They took all the books out. Constantine did it, and then 50 years after he passed, they had two more councils, and they took some more books out. So if you actually Google how many books are in the Christian canon today, you're going to see it depends on which Christian church you're talking about. You're going to see that the average Christian church has the least amount of books, and the Lutheran church has a few more. The Roman Catholic Church has the most of anybody except for the Eastern Orthodox Church and the Ethiopian Church, right? The Ethiopian Church having every book in there that was originally put in there. And at first they wanted to discount it, but since the 1800s, which you guys don't know about that, they've been working on that since the 1800s, trying to discount their book that they have. And since they were finally got tired of waiting for the church, they just decided to start telling people about it and inviting people to take a look at it, right? So the Pope, the popes, starting with Peter when he usurped the church away from Mary. Let's start with that. So the very first Pope back, at the beginning of 40 days later, when the Acts of the Apostles start and Peter decided that he was in charge, from that point on, it was pretty much going downhill. First thing he did was nobody gets to be married. Women are subservient. Then they can't be clergy. That was the beginning of that. But beyond that, when you go forward, there were a lot of popes that were self-serving, right? And a lot of them were doing horrible things. Then their infiltration of negative people into the church at the hierarchy, that happens in every corporation, happens in everything that you do. If you take a company and put it on the stock market and you have a board of directors, that board of directors is going to be flooded with people that are self-serving as soon as they can get on the board, and they're going to take control of it. They're going to take it away from whoever owns it. That's just what they do. Not necessarily it's recognized as the papal infallibility. No, it depends on what you're talking about. If you're talking about like the laws, saying that the Pope can do whatever they want and that they can't do anything wrong, that's just a cop-out made by somebody who doesn't want to get in trouble, right? A Pope can speak wrongly as a man. He cannot bind the whole church to his heresy, but they did, and they do. Okay, so and that's true. I mean, you can look at that in history. Dan Brown wrote a book called The Da Vinci Code based on possible history from 4 books that I currently own but don't have them with me because they're in America. I left them at my sister's house, which is the Templar Knights, Mary and her Knights, the Book of Mary Magdalene,
and the book of is it Jude? Um, I think it's Jude, and there's another one too. I think it's Philip, the book of Philip. So just those alone, which were also taken out. So the book of Mary Magdalene, which they have now confirmed, has been found in 4 countries separate from each other, dating back to the same time period. Okay, so somebody had copies of it, that dates back to the 1st century or early 2nd century. So we're looking in the early 100s, late, because Jesus was gone by 33. So by 50, there was a book that she wrote that was out there in the world, and they can trace it from about 60 to about 120 to where they found it in different places around the world that date back that far. So people were saying it wasn't true and it wasn't real and it was fabricated later. That's not true. That's been actually something that they have found to be real. So that we know that exists. I've read it. I've read the pieces of it that are out there. Okay. So the people who were popes have been editing, and there was a pope that literally in the 1100s literally said Mary was a whore and pushed her aside, and that stayed as doctrine until Pope John Paul II said that wasn't true when he said it, and it's not true now. Okay, so that was a lie that became law, became canon for almost 1,000 years. Okay, so that's a pope doing that. So the popes are still people. I agree with you, and people can say things as a man, but that's a cop-out if you do that, because then my opinion, no matter what it is, I can always, as a clergy, say, well, that's my personal opinion, and I can have that. Well, if it's public, it's not personal, is it? Do you see the distinction there? So as a minister, I would, anything that I say publicly is especially if anyone knows that I'm a minister, comes from that place in their mind. So I would have to, every time I say something, before and after I say it, I would have to say what I'm about to say is me as a person speaking, not as a clergy. And this is my personal point of view. As a clergy, you're not supposed to have a personal point of view when you're around the parishioners, right? So how's the Catholic Church been preserving these books and canonized and compiled the Bible? How have they been? Well, they haven't been doing it. They probably have a copy of it. They probably have all of the books, hidden in the archives. But we do know that at the time, the church was being controlled by Constantine, and Constantine hunted down the Essenes, who were an order of the church at the time, and unalived everybody to get rid of the knowledge that they had taken out. We know this to be fact in history. Okay, so we found those books that those guys hid in the Dead Sea area. Okay, so those are now called the Dead Sea Scrolls, or the Nag Hammadi, and a couple of others that we know tailor into those. So that was the official church going after these people. Then, if you look at later on, Dan Brown read Holy Blood, Holy Grail. That was another book that he based his stuff on. Holy Blood, Holy Grail, which I've read. Those guys got that from another book in history from further back. They also researched it in the south of France. Okay, so Mary shows up over there, and then starts up the way in teaching over there, becomes the way, and becomes a church, Orthodox way. Later on, around that same time, about the 1100s, I don't know the exact date, they say that church over in Rome has been corrupted. It's not being taught the way Jesus is teaching. They have edited things they shouldn't have, and it's not right. And so what does the Pope do? The Pope's answer to that is to send the knights to the south of France and unalive everybody that has anything to do with it. Okay? So, that was the books of the Old, not the New Testament. Now, it was both. It was books of both Old and New Testament. The only books they left in, you need to look at the Nicene Council. The only books they left in, they took out James, they left in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, 4 of the 12. Not to mention eradicating the idea that there were 9 women that were also following. So they took out Mary's book, some of the other women's books that were in there, and everyone else who wrote a book except for Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And they make you believe that nobody else wrote anything. But we know that there's the book of Jude, there's the book of Philip, there's a bunch of other books, the book of James, John's brother James. Okay, so that's just 3 that I can think of off the top of my head. Not to mention Mary, that's 4. So 4 books minimum were taken out of there. They took out more books out of both. They took out books out of the Old Testament and they took out books out of the New Testament. You can look that up. They took out a lot of books. There's currently, the Dead Sea Scrolls, all of those books, okay? And some of those are from the Old Testament as well. So the Hebrews have a problem with what Christians call the Old Testament, because the Old Testament is not their Bible anymore, because it's been edited as well. So that's wrong. Even though we call it the Old Testament, where did we get it from? It's based on their, what Christians are calling the Apocrypha of the Hebrews, right? My brother, who's in theological college, he comes to me and he says last year, almost a year ago now, because I was in America at the time, and it was back in May of last year, and he says, do you know that the Hebrew, they don't even have a Bible, it's an Apocrypha? And I'm like, oh, yes, that means it's not real. And he was like, yeah, right? And I'm like, yeah, that means your religion's not real because you're a Christian. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you do realize that Jesus, every piece of him came out of that Bible of him being the Savior that they were waiting on to come for the Jews, right? So Jesus can't exist without that Bible, because that's the foretelling of him. So if they have an Apocrypha and they're just created, then Jesus isn't legit because there's no reason for him to be here. And he was like, what? Yeah, the Torah. And he was like, wait, what? And he kind of looked at me and I'm like, so if it's all based on the book of Moses, the book that Moses claims was given to him by God. Just like the Quran, it's also based on the book of Moses. So is the Christian Bible. Without the Old Testament, you just have, right now you would only have a few books. You would have Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. You would have Acts, Romans. Where did we get that? There was no book of Romans until the Romans took control. And then you would have a few other books that we have there, which, most of those are kings and lineage to prove that Jesus was related to David and things like that, right? What about the Shroud? The Shroud of Turin, there's a couple of links here on this page and on my Facebook page as well. They've done actual tests again on that because they discovered that the test that was done in the 1980s where they claimed that they disproved it was rigged on purpose. They did a testing of an area that everyone knew was sewn in the 1500s. They didn't test any other part of the Shroud itself, and they have done nuclear tests and all kinds of tests. And there's people talking about it now all over the place on Sean Ryan's show, on Tucker Carlson's show, and videos on other people's show. And there's a couple that I've linked on my Facebook page where it'll take you to YouTube and you can watch some videos of actual scientists and what they've done to actually figure out what's going on. So you should take a look at that. It's seriously crazy, right? So let's see. What are you saying here, right? So scientists today still can't explain it. No, they can't, but they can tell you. They can't explain it, but they can tell you exactly 100% where it was, when it was there, who touched it, and they can run the DNA from the blood that's still actually on there, that's not been completely gone, and they can actually tell you what actually had to happen and what happened to that body, like a crime scene. You should watch the videos. It's not like you think. Everyone jokes and laughs about it, right? And you don't want to know that. You don't want to know anything about a blood type. No one wants to know that about a blood type. They want to claim that there's no blood on it, but there is. There's blood on it. You should watch the videos. They're working on a lot of things. This is why people are freaking out right about now, and why Dan Brown wrote his book, because they actually proved that we cannot even today manufacture that Shroud of Turin the way it's manufactured, the way it's done. So if it was made when people like it was made in the 1500s, couldn't be done. We can't do it today. They couldn't do it then. There's no way they could do it then. And it's impossible that they created it, because it's impossible for us to create it today. There's only one way that shroud can be created, and we can't do it. Okay? And you can look that up. Even the scientists say it. Scientists say this thing happened spontaneously like the Big Bang. It happened, and we could not recreate this now if we wanted to, because of the amount of energy that it took for that image to be imprinted onto that shroud. We cannot generate it now, even with nuclear weapons that we have. Okay. Right. Okay. So how would you know that? Right. So you're saying they don't have any DNA. How would you know that Jesus is that rarest DNA? How would you know that if they didn't test it somewhere? Then that becomes theory, bro. Do you see my point? I said the same thing. So if Jesus comes from, they're saying that because if he came from David, well, he's not going to have any David DNA because he doesn't, because his father wasn't his father, and that's where the line came through David. But everything was traced through the woman, not through the man. So the mitochondrial DNA from Mary, his mom, is actually royalty as well, right? I've seen the lineage. I've seen where it goes and where it farms out from. It's kind of crazy. A cousin of mine he and I were looking at it. He's over, I think currently he's in America, but he was in Ireland, and he was actually sending it to me, and we were looking it over, right? Yeah, my family's weird that way. We're all a bunch of ministers and, and we were all a bunch of theologians, and we looked this stuff up. So from what we can gather, there is no father DNA in the DNA because he was an immaculate conception, which is crazy that they can prove that. I haven't vetted that, but that's what people are saying who have supposedly looked at this information, that he has mitochondrial, he has the feminine DNA, but he doesn't have any father DNA. Which is really crazy. I would love to see that. I haven't been able to look at that, right? But he's supposedly of the rarest blood type. I'm type O negative, which on this earth now is the rarest. I mean, as far as, like 10%, but the blood type, he was like AB or something, AB positive or something. I'm not sure exactly. And maybe you might even know that off the top of your head. He's like one of the rarest. He's like the lost tribe of Israel blood type, right? He's one of those, right? Have you been able to look at the scientifical proven Eucharistic miracles also? No, there's some stuff I would really like to get into the Vatican. There's another guy, he and I share the middle name of Edward. I can't think of his last name right now, but he's proving mathematically that Jesus existed and that God exists. He's also a knight. He was knighted by the church in Portugal. So he's a Portuguese knight. He was knighted by the church in Portugal, and he's spoken in the Vatican, and apparently he's been able to go in and take a look at that, right? And he's been able to go into the Vatican archives, so I would love to meet with him and find out. So do I believe in the Bible? Yes. I believe in all Bibles. If you read my book, which is right here on the screen, The Reality About Reality, Returning to the Old Ways, every single Bible or spiritual practice on the face of the earth, dating back to as far back as we know, dating back to 35,000 years ago, 77,000 years ago, are all telling the same story. The Book of the Dead by the Egyptians, the Thoth the Atlantean, the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, the Corpus Hermeticus, the Hebrew Bible, the Christian Bible, the creation story of the Japanese, the creation story of the Vikings, the creation story of all the Hebrews, creation story of the Far East, the Chinese, the Japanese, all of them, they're all telling the exact same story. It's just people don't realize that. Okay, so do I believe in the Bible? Which Bible? There's a Bible called the Colburn Bible in Scotland, which has scrolls that came out of the Genesis or with the Exodus, came out of Egypt with Moses. He didn't have them, but the priests did. They got copies of them and they put them in their Bible because the story is so eerily similar to the ancient story from the Vikings and their creation story, right? Options on Nephilim. Yeah, well, correct translations. Let's start with that, right? Let's start with the correct translations of what Nephilim meant. Which, Zechariah Sitchin just completely destroyed on this earth. And so now you have this whole group of people that are making all kinds of money that work for Prometheus and Gaia and Disney and history. So where they're making all kinds of money and telling you that things are different from the real stories. You have to look for the real people, right? Thank you. I mean, you may not agree with everything that I say, right? You're such a fascinating man, despite if I disagree in ways, I also agree with many things that you say. That's the whole point, right? The point of this is for us to be able to talk so that I can learn things I don't know from people like you who may have researched and found things that I don't know yet, right? So I stimulate you in saying the things that I know, and then you turn around and say, but what about this and that? And you have counterpoints for my points, and then I research those, or I learn from that, and we talk about it, and then I expand my knowledge and you expand your knowledge. That's how it works, brother. So I'm glad that you have a knowledge to work with, right? Have you heard of Almond Hillman? He has said about the Bible. No, I know the name. I've heard the name, but I don't know what he said about the Bible. I would have to look into that and find out what he said about the Bible. But most of the people, if they're true theologians, okay, most theological colleges, and this is what I warned my brother about. He's in a Christian theological college, and I said they're teaching you to be a good little Christian, so you need to be careful if you want to be the theologian. If you're going to get a doctorate in theology or even a master's in theology, you have to realize that means the study of, not from the perspective of Christianity. Okay, that means the study of spirituality, not just religion. Okay, so you have to realize that most people just look at religion and then they try to go after scrolls, and then they say like, Nephilim and Archon and Archangel, and what do those mean? And then think that they're completely different and start putting them into a third dimensional category, puddle jumping in spaceships, which is just completely wrong and out of the question. And you know what I mean? And so if you're going to look for things in the physical sense, you're not going to get anything, right? I figured that you did, Lloyd, because you talk like a person who's very learned. That's why I didn't in any way question. I just would give a counterpoint where I thought that we could both benefit from looking at that. So I want you to realize that I respect you, and I recognize that you have far more knowledge than 90% of the people that I talk to when I'm live on a show like this. So I know that I can tell that you have the extensive background in learning this stuff. I don't know if you've gone to school. I don't know if you have licenses and the like, because everybody's so paper driven, but you have knowledge and you know what you're talking about. So I would love to have more conversations about that, right? So it can't be studied through the Christian lens. No, you can't. So I was telling him, you got to be careful. They're going to put you in that box, bro, and you're going to do everything. First thing that all religion does is they get you to say, my religion's the right way and all other religions are wrong. The fact that they were telling him that the Hebrew Bible was an apocrypha, and that in their minds it wasn't real because of that, I'm like, then your religion can't be in existence. Your religion of Christianity depends on all of those things to check off in their religion, to saying that Jesus was the Savior, right? For legitimacy. Otherwise, you could just say that Jesus is here, take the Hebrews away, take that story away, and just say Jesus popped up here and he was here. Okay, so that caricature, if you're a true theologian, you know that the Jesus, that box, that is that character, happened 28 times on this earth by different names. And if you're not going to admit that to yourself, then you're not a true theologian. Because if you are, you're not just studying the scroll and where it came from and who wrote it first, but you're actually studying what the hell does it say. Okay, so the story of Jesus is the story of Thor. It's the story of Marduk. It's the story of Shiva. It's the story of Osiris. Okay, and there's more, right? It's the same exact story. In fact, Moses is another telling of the same story. They just tell it slightly different name, different place, different time, but most of it's exactly the same. And people look at me and go, that's just not true. And I go, okay, if you're Christian, you know John 3:16. The Lord God so loved the earth, he sent his only begotten son. Okay, let's just stop there, and then we'll pick up in a minute. Odin, the All-Father, all-creator of the universe, so loved the human race that he sent his only begotten son. Okay, all of those people were 33 years of age when they ended their job. Okay, most of them ascended to heaven, including Moses. Okay, they were 33 years of age when they did that. They all came down here. They all had to fight a serpent or a dragon. Okay, every single one of them. All right, a serpent or a dragon. They all walked on water. They all fed people with no food. They all made the blind see. They did all of those things. Most of them were unalived and then came to life and were resurrected and became the light of the world by going back to heaven. Okay, 28 times the same character happened. That doesn't lower the legitimacy, for those of you who are Christians, does not lower the legitimacy of Jesus. Okay, it does not. It shows that God came here in every country with the same concept and was teaching the people the way out of here. And that way was through the Son. Okay, so right, so that still says that Jesus was legit. In fact, the stories are all so similar. Here's the thing that, as a theologian, it'll screw you up. If you're a historian, it'll screw up your brain. There is only one story ever in the history of the world that is told exactly the same throughout all of time, going back at least 35,000 years, and that's the story of the Savior, the story of the Christ. Story of the Christ within. That's why I wrote this book about it, right there. The reality about reality returning to the old ways. No joke. Let me put it up on the screen so you guys can see it here, okay? So there's a reason that I wrote that book right there, okay? Because it's about the Christ oil, the Christ within. Because it is the same story of all time. It's the same story of the book of Moses. That's why the Hebrews talk about it. It's the same story of Moses. It's the same story of Marduk. He did the exact same thing. Okay? It's the same story of Thor. He did the exact same thing. Okay? You got to look at the Christ oil thing, man. Yes, no, I teach it. That's what this book's about, bro. It's about what's happening here on earth, why you're stuck, who got you stuck, and how you get out of here. I teach that. Christ oil. There's a video on my page. I mentioned it here. There's another book that but I wish I would have, when I was writing my book, I had it on my bookcase, but didn't read it afterwards. When I was talking about my book to my brother, who was in a theological college at the time, he said, that's God, man, the Bible made flesh. And he said, have you ever heard of that book? My teacher was talking about that book. I said, I think I own that book. And I went into my library and I pulled it out. And I was on the phone with my brother. I said, look. He says, you need to read that because everything that you're saying is in there. And I didn't realize that, or I would have actually went in there and said, you can, reference it over to this book. Right. So, Lloyd, follow me, brother, so that that way when I'm live, you can come back in and we can talk some more. And then, brother, thanks for hopping in. Thanks for doing what you did. Thanks for being here and making things interesting. Right. So you got to go, right? We'll have to have more conversations, brother. Thanks for popping in, right? Make sure you follow me, right? All right, guys. Thanks again, Lloyd. That was cool. Okay, so it looks like my wife popped in and I didn't even see her. She must have been on a break. I love you, Brooke. I didn't realize that. I see her name up there, so she must have hit the button or something, right? Yeah, man, I can hear you talk for a while. I know, right? My wife says the same thing. She'll listen to me, and before we met, she used to listen to me. And you know what I mean? And she was like, oh my God, your voice, I can listen to you talk with all this stuff forever. So there's podcasts. If you want to listen to my stuff, bro, there's over there's 1,000 episodes out there in the ether, but I think that most of them have been killed because I said that name. I got all crazy because YouTube deplatformed me 4 years ago and Facebook did too. So I lost 500 episodes of my podcast. Right. But I think they're out there in the ether somewhere. I think Apple Podcast has more than anybody else, but there's 580 episodes that still exist out there in the world for you guys, right? Isn't there 33 vertebrae? Yes, there is. That's part of the Christ oil, the 33 rungs of Jacob's ladder too, my friend. That's that one. That's why I mentioned that 33. Look at Thor when he goes back across Bifrost, the Rainbow Bridge. That's the chakras, bro, going up your spine. Going across the Rainbow Bridge is going across the spine. That was their telling of that, right? So check it out. Yeah, you can get the ebook, Lloyd, for like $4. If you go to Amazon or you go to my publisher, there's a link in my Facebook page for the publisher. You'll get it cheaper from the publisher, and I get more money from it. If you guys buy it from Amazon, they take most of my money. But it is on ebook, so you can get it on ebook. We don't have it on audio yet, but it's on ebook. You can get that for like $5. American. I'm assuming you're American. Just by your name and your knowledge tells me, the way you speak tells me that you're probably in the United States. You're European anyway. You're probably in America. All right. So yeah, guys, check out my book. It's right here, right? You guys take a look at that. I literally, that's what I teach. What I'm here to teach you guys is that I'm here to answer your guys' questions about spirituality, but I'm also here to teach you that religion recruits you. Spirituality waits for you to find it. That's a quote from my book. Which I can't believe anyone said that. No one said that on this earth until I did, right? Thank you for the roses, Lloyd. That's rocking, right? 31 roses. Ba-bing. Thank you for that. So, you literally, right? Yeah, it's really funny because I was Protestant for about 5 years, and for 5 years, and all I wanted to do was, and then I don't see the rest of it. I don't know why it doesn't show the rest of it. But yeah, I talked about this when I was at the church. When I was a kid, I asked my father, across the street was a Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I had talked to some of the clergy there and some of the people there. And so I asked my dad if we were Christian. And he said, well, your grandparents are Roman Catholic. I was raised Roman Catholic, but don't just follow that. You need to look for yourself. Study everybody's religion and go and talk to their clergy and talk to the people, go and see how they worship and what they do. I was like 7 or 8 and I started doing that and continued doing that. I just kept going. I just kept doing that. I still do it to this day. So I took my father's words literal and just started doing that and became a theologian because of it, right? So yeah, right. Disprove to my buddies they were wrong and that they led me to find the answers. Then after I was that's kind of what happens if somebody challenges you in some way, or they inspire you in some way, right? I was proven wrong and found the Catholicism as a truth. So until I looked for the answers, I found them. Well, that's what happens. I started looking as well because of that, and all of the knowledge ended up leading me back to the Roman Catholic Church because of being able to actually trace their roots back to Jesus and the followers. Most people that are Christians get mad when Catholics tell them that, look, we can actually trace our lineage to the creation of the church. You guys are an offshoot of the Catholic religion. And they get mad because they're like, no, we're not. No. And yeah, you were. Look, when your religion first became a religion. And the person who started it is usually a priest from the Catholic religion who didn't agree with some things, like Lutheranism with Luther. He didn't like some of the ways that they were teaching, and he wanted to go back to the older ways, and said he didn't really want his religion to become called that, but they turned it into that. You know what I mean? So Jesus founded the Catholic Church. No joke. He founded Christianity. Well, Christianity was founded by Constantine in the year 329, but the way, because that's what Jesus called it, by the way. He was teaching it the way, like Lao Tzu from the Tao Te Ching. The Tao Te Ching means the way, the book of the way, right? So it means the way. So he was teaching the way. He wasn't teaching Taoism, but he was teaching the same thing that is being taught in Buddhism and Taoism and the like, right? So anybody who's paying attention to the theology, to the spirituality, even as a Reiki practitioner, as a Reiki master teacher, I'm teaching that spiritual way. That's the same thing. They were teaching the chakras and the Kundalini and that sort of stuff. They called it Mitsubishi, the Japanese. Mitsubishi, 3 diamonds. There's a car company that's their logo. It's 3 diamonds. And that's polishing the upper, it's 3, 6, and 9, crazily, right? But it's the bottom 3 chakras, the heart chakra, and the upper 3 chakras, right? Masculine, feminine, physical, spiritual, and the heart, which crosses over the yin and the yang, the Vesica Pisces. So literally, they were teaching, even with the spirituality that was created by Usuni in the 1800s. He was also a Buddhist. So he literally looked at that and saw that the Japanese way, the Hindu way, and these other religions were, including Taoism and Buddhism, were all similar. He was awake enough to realize that, but he didn't want it to be any kind of religion. He wanted it to be a healing practice. And we, as Reiki masters, are not allowing anybody to orthodox it into some sort of crazy religion. We're keeping it as a spiritual way. But the spiritual way, when we teach it, when I do, my wife and I specifically, we teach it and we let people know, look, if you become a Reiki master, you will open your third eye. You will learn the way that Jesus was teaching by learning this. You will actually learn more the way of a follower like the apostles did. They went out and healed people. Okay, so the Reiki way is revitalizing that Christian way, that Jesus way of healing and being a prophet and speaking to people and helping them teach it. So that's the way we're teaching our Reiki. When we teach, we are going, look, here's all these these ancient ways that these people knew about, and Usuni knew this stuff because this is what he was exposed to, right? The Grand Master, when he got these symbols. So whether he created them or invented them, or it actually happened the way that it did, that he got this from God, doesn't matter. It's the same as when people ask me as a minister, do you believe that Jesus is real? Right? Thank you for that. Bing, bang. Thank you for that. Who did that? Dreamcat. I like that name, Dreamcat. So thank you for that. So yeah, if you believe it works, that's the thing. Easy to. The entire operation, thank you, Lloyd, for that. The entire operation is that, like, if you can stop people from healing you, even doctors, if you say your stuff doesn't work and you're not helping me, right? So if somebody's healing you in any way, you heal yourself. And we teach that in Reiki, that truly I'm not doing anything as a healer to you. What I'm doing is I'm the conduit. I am just the tool. It's the same way that Jesus was teaching. I am the tool from the Creator. I am the tool from Source, and I'm taking Source energy to heal you with love, and I'm putting it into you. You have to accept it. If you accept it and you agree to it, then I'm not the one who's healing you. The Creator is healing you. Okay. Thank you, Dreamcat, for that. For those, she's like hit me with everything there. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Right. So yeah, yeah, right, Lloyd. Don't get me started on that on pharma, right? Don't get me started on that. I was in America. I'm over here in Australia. I came to Australia, and in the first 3 months, probably the first month and a half, I dropped almost 50 pounds just from not eating that food anymore. I eat everything that I want to eat over here, and I dropped like 50 pounds just walking over here, just coming to this country, being in Australia because they outlaw most American food. The companies who sell food in America sell food over here, but it's completely different, and they have to call it something like Frito-Lay, which is owned by Pepsi. In America, all the Frito-Lay potato chips, none of them are sold in this country. They're illegal. The company is called Smith's, and it's owned by Pepsi, and they sell all the same chips under the Smith brand, and the ingredients are like an inch long instead of a page and a half, right? So yeah, big psyop, bro. Full on psyop. Oh, and here's the thing: I was on like 10 medications when I was in the United States. I started trying to work on getting off the medications. I was down to like 4 or 5, and I have none. No. I had high blood pressure. I was a type 2 diabetic. I had asthma. I had COPD, low testosterone. I've been here almost a year now, and I got none of that. No medications. I got off the boat, and I had no medications from the second I got off the boat. When I ran out of what I had, I didn't re-up them over here, and I'm fine. Right? Because that's right. No seed oils, no sugars. This stuff's so dangerous. Yeah. So dangerous, right? Oh, what was that? Somebody just gave me a big schmackaroonie. Thanks, Drink Cat. if Brooke were on, she'd get jealous. She'd be like, what are you doing kissing my husband? Right? So, yeah, I mean, bro, they're drug dealers over there. Here's something I don't know if you know, Lloyd. I don't know if you know this. I didn't know this. I didn't know this until people over here told me that, and I looked it up. There are only 2 countries on the face of the earth that allow pharmaceutical companies to advertise on any platform. America is one of them. And the other one's like, I don't know. I always use Moldova. They're probably getting mad at me over there. I'll have to look it up again. There's only 2 countries in the world. You can look it up. So there's no commercials over here for drugs. None. Most of the commercials from America are also illegal in this country. I was watching the Super Bowl, right? I'm over here watching the Super Bowl on ESPN. And when they went to a commercial break, there was no commercials, and it said, we're on a commercial break. And I would sit there, and I would get 2 Australian commercials, and then it would come back on. Because all the commercials that they have over there are illegal in this country. That's insane, bro. Right? No joke. No word of a lie. No joke. So it's just insane that people don't realize, because it's this the mainstay. It's normal. People in America don't realize how bad they have it. They don't realize that the pharmaceutical companies control the medical associations, own most of them. Okay, so the people that are giving you medication are giving you their boss's medication, and they're incentivized to do that, right? So you have the same corporations who are manufacturing no cure, only manufacturing Band-Aids that are doing nothing for you. They're the same ones that are dictating what the doctors can and can't prescribe you, and what the doctors can and can't say to you. And you're unaware of that because you believe that stuff, right? Yeah, that's just insane, right? So did you see the satanic rituals by Sam Smith at the Super Bowl? Well, what's your take on that? Yeah, right. Now, I don't know if that was the one, because the one that was on this time, the halftime show, it wasn't Sam Smith, but the one that he did do that. Yeah, that was just, well, they see that's part of the, the controllers. That's what I call them in this book. It's part of the, that word that if I say, that state that is in like water that's, I can't say that word on this platform with that word state at the same time because it's run by a communist country over here. You guys in America have an American that owns part of TikTok. I'm in Australia. We have the Chinese version. So certain words I can't say over here, but if you look at those people who are controlling all of the industry that is the entertainment industry, they're forcing those people to do those things. Okay. Yeah, I said, yeah, I got it. So they're actually forcing those people to do those things. So you see them doing, that the eye thing. You see them doing all those different symbols, and you see them putting that in their videos, their stage performances. People who are normal, and then all of a sudden they're completely different when they're, after a year or two when they get really popular. Then all of a sudden you see that they go dark and they do that dark rituals and things in their stuff, right? Yeah, and once you look at who runs those television networks, right, Lloyd, and major news companies, it makes sense. Yeah, when you look behind the curtain, right? When you look behind the curtain, you see that it's a completely different story. That's why I wrote this book called The Reality About Reality, Returning to the Old Ways, because they've been controlling, because they know this. They know the secret. The secret is that your focus determines your reality, okay? Our collective focus creates the reality here. And if you're a Christian, you know that. Look at Matthew, right? So in Matthew and in John, you see Jesus talking about that, and he says, it was in Matthew 3. I don't know the exact numbers, like 3:18 or something in Matthew. Don't quote me on that, but somewhere in there, and that's when he says these words that God tells you, what you sow on earth, he shall too sow in heaven. What you reap on earth, he shall too reap in heaven. And then he goes on to say, if you had but a mustard seed of faith, now I'm paraphrasing, I'm not going verbatim, guys, but if you had but a mustard seed of faith, you could look at that mountain and say to that mountain, move from over here to over there, and it would. There was more involved in that if you look that up. So literally, that's saying that our focus determines our reality, what we make here. So when people are saying that God promised the new heaven and the new earth, this is where it's supposed to be. We're supposed to create the new heaven and the new earth, right? Thank you for that, high vibes. Thank you very much. We're supposed to be creating that here. Okay, I was at a conference where we were talking to clergy from all around the world, and we were like literally getting into it. And there was a rabbi who was playing the God's advocate, right? And so we were changing who was, you do this in leadership too, right? If you ever been to a leadership school, you know that you do that and you play role playing, right? So this one time I was the questioner as a human talking to God, and this rabbi was God talking as God. And I asked the question, what is it that we're supposed to be doing down here, Father? And he said, I gave you a house, you're supposed to be making a home. And I thought that's a good way of saying that, right? I gave you a house and you're supposed to be making it a home so that I can move in there, so that I can come home. Okay. So literally that's part of what we're supposed to be doing. This place was created and we're the caretakers of this place, and we make it what we want it to be. We sow the seeds of what it becomes. We harvest what we sow and what it becomes. So if we want this place to be the new heaven, we make the new heaven. That was promised. That was promised by God. We're supposed to be doing that. Okay. So literally in this conversation, I also said, well, those of us who are clergy, how are we supposed to be, accentuating that? And he said, the biggest problem that you guys have is you get in your own way. This is stuff that I teach. So I love that he was saying this back to me, because I was realizing there was other people thinking the same way. You are supposed to be, and there's that gas mask story, right? So you're supposed to be taking care of yourself while you're taking care of other people. You get stuck on either taking care of yourself or you get stuck on taking care of other people, and you don't balance the two. You can help people, but you have to also have self-care. So you're supposed to be doing that. Why are you not doing that with the earth itself? So these conversations evolved past that, and I love those ideas, right? Because God used to walk among us, right, Lloyd? Yes, and sin came about and brought that falling world. So literally, that's where. But it was something that the Creator. A lot of people don't know this. It was something the Creator created. The Creator allowed this to happen. The Creator created this and to happen. So the fall of us was not something that was done to us. It was done for us. And this is why I tell people this. All of this is not happening to you. It's happening for you. You think it's happening to you because people have told you that you have no power, you have no strength, and that you have no say. That's just not the case, right? So this isn't being done at us by a cruel, evil person called Satan. right? Satan was created, or the devil was created, so that we could have these experiences in an organic way by the Creator, so that we would know the difference between life and death. We would know the difference between good and evil. You can't truly know what evil is without good. You can't truly know what good is without evil chasing you. So you can't know what life is and how precious it is if there's no threat to it. So there had to be this harmonic balance, that yin and yang, that Vesica Pisces, for us to truly understand this or understand it. Okay. So that's the part that's hard for people to get to, because then they're going, wait, so then God just created on purpose evil and the devil to do this stuff to us? The answer is yes. And if God didn't, we would have created that on our own selves, because truly, for us to have an organic experience of all of these things, you can't know what peace is without war. Okay? And I know that sounds crazy to some people. Hopefully you guys aren't getting mad at me about that, right? Let me see what you guys are saying here. Right? So yes, Satan is actually defeated by. Correct. Satan cannot ever defeat God. But we down here at this level are unaware of that. And so we're down here in it, and we're worried that because Satan keeps trying to tell us that he's in charge and that he's just equal to God, and he's not. He was created down here, and that's it, right? So, right as we shift, high vibes, as we shift into 4D going into 5D, that's when we're going to be creating the new heaven and the new earth, right? And one will be the demise of 3D. That's correct. So, but evil will not cease when that happens. When that happens, there will be less evil and there will be less control by the evil people. Okay. Do you know Darius J. Wright? No, but I think I've heard the name. OBE guy. Is he the OBE guy? Is he Obi? So there was girls in the Czech Republic, the Pedrezgas, that were channeling an an EBE. I'm not sure. Is Obi who he channels? Is that who that is? I don't know who that person is. I'll have to look him up. I know the name sounds familiar though. He's saying the same thing. We are not a victim. Yeah, well, he's correct in that, right? So this is actually a topic I'm currently studying into. I've got a lot of lessons of Satan and learning, right, Lloyd? That's funny, because you're actually weird. Isn't that how that weird that does that? Oh, out of body experience. I'm understanding. So yeah, but isn't that weird? When I was doing the Law of One, I taught it twice. So I did it for over 5 years on my podcast. I did it a long time ago, like back in 2017, 2018, and I did it very 3D, as low vibration as I could. And then I redid it again and just finished it last year in May or June of last year. I finished doing it the second time, 106 sessions, 6 books. And when I would do the Law of One, weirdly, I did it every Friday. And the topic of the day would just be the next lesson, would always have something to do with like what's going on in the world at the time. It was really bizarre, and people started bringing that up and going, "Have you noticed the stuff that's going on is exactly what what the Law of One is discussing today?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's weird how that happens, right?" So that's crazy when you think about that. Okay, so what did you say here, Lloyd? You said whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Correct. That's almost word for word, right? And whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Yeah, depending on your translation, that's almost exactly. You might even be reading that from Matthew right there, because that sounds very close. I think that sounds like the New International Version of the Christian canon that you just read from. Those the words that sound like that, right? So Jesus is giving apostolistic or church authority to the apostles. That's right. And that you hear about, and that's why they don't teach you the Acts of the Apostles anymore. So they go Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, they skip over the Acts of the Apostles and go right into Romans when they're teaching you in schools, especially in church on Sunday. They don't talk about the Acts of the Apostles very much. They might give you a saying from out of there, but most people don't even know that it exists unless they look at it in their own selves. Why is that? Because that's where the Nag Hammadi comes into play, or the Gnosis, the Gnostic Gospels. The Gnosis religion was spawned because of that, because Jesus was teaching away. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. That is actually him beginning the way of his ideology, and the things that he said to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John that we have, because that's the only books we have left. Their accounts of what happened in the off times when they were talking at dinner and other things, right? So all of those lessons that were learned there and when he spoke in front of people are in Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. If you go to the Acts of the Apostles, that was 40 days after the resurrection, which Jesus was here for, by the way. He didn't get resurrected, show doubting Thomas, touch my wounds, and then a flash of light and disappear and say, I'll be back, wait for me here, because he didn't say any of that. He didn't do that. He was here for 40 days, and he was teaching them other information, which was written down in other books, which was taken out of the Bible in 329 by Constantine, the book of James and a few other books, Philip, James, Jude, Judas. There was even a book of Judas, which I've read. You can read them. They're out there. So the Gnosis people start this religion called Gnosis or Gnosticism, and they're telling you that, well, I think they're saying James and John got this information from Jesus, and Jesus said, all that stuff I was teaching you was all a lie. Here's all the real truth. And that's the lie itself, because Jesus did give them more information after his resurrection. And he said, now that you're teaching all of this, you have to know that I am going to return the powers to you that I gave you when I sent you out 2 by 2. But here's all the other knowledge that you now need to know to be a master, to be a prophet, to be a teacher, and to be a rabbi in your own right. And he was teaching them these other books, which they took out of the Bible. Okay? And that's the kind of stuff that you can find that's there. So he was here for 40 days, and there's many people in history who told that, and they've been trying to keep that quiet because they stop it there, remove Mary, take the sacred feminine out of the religion, make it a warlike, male-dominated religion. That's what Constantine was doing, putting it back in a box and having a male-dominated, warlike religion and keeping everybody low vibration and not teaching you how to get out of here anymore, right? Yeah, there are 500 eyewitnesses and testimony, okay? And people all the time online, I'll have them pop in and they'll go, there is no definitive proof. There's no empirical proof that Jesus existed. I'm like, we actually have more empirical proof that Jesus existed than Genghis Khan. We have more empirical proof that Jesus existed than Constantine or Pontius Pilate, right? And Pilate was the guy who tried him, and Constantine was the guy who changed the Bible. We have more actual definitive proof that we're not just Roman, not just Hebrew, but there were people that were citizens and business people who witnessed, who saw it, heard about it, talked about it. Okay, so there's all kinds of actual proof that is out there. So what is really the right way to get to heaven? Exactly. The right way to get to heaven is by any of the ways that people are teaching you. I talk about it in my book right here. The way to get to heaven, I'm going to give you the secret to the universe, is looking for the Christ within you. There is a Christ oil. There is a Christos. That's what the Greeks called it. That's where you get the word Christ from. Christos. It's a Greek word. There is an oil, 2 oils in your body that secrete from your hippocampus or from your medulla oblongata. They go down your spine once a month and goes down to the base of your spine and back up. And when it does, it charges with this energy and they mix together. And I'm paraphrasing, but it's a longer story than that. It goes into your brain, and it goes when the moon goes in and through your zodiac sign, your sun sign. Okay. And I don't have my calendar here, or I'd show you guys, but you can see it. You can look this stuff up. Okay. Thank you for that. Tonto. Love that name, Tonto. So literally, you can look this up. It happens within every single one of us once a month. Okay. And depending on your sun sign, the moon moves in and out of every single sun sign, and it's in your sun sign for, wait a minute, 2.5 days, 3 days. It's in there for 60 hours. That's the exact time of the unaliving of Jesus and his resurrection. Okay, so this oil goes down your body. There's 2 of them, and it literally one goes down the Inga and one goes down the Pingala nerve system. Comes from your hippocampus and your optic thalamus, or your pituitary gland, your optic thalamus. One is a milk-like substance. One is a honey-like substance. One is charged with electricity. One is charged with magnetism. They're masculine and feminine, kundalini, kunda buffer energies. They go down your nervous system, down your endocrine system, down the Inga and the Pingala nerve. They come from your brain. And they go down your spinal column through your claustrum, where we get Santa Claus from. Okay. They go through the claustrum and they go down your spinal column and they go down to the 5 vertebrae at the base of your spine that are fused together. Okay. And that in ancient times was called Bethlehem. Wait, what? And those oils were called Joseph and Mary. They go down, they mix together. Then they go back across Bifrost, your rainbow bridge. They go up your 33 runs of Jacob's ladder 33 years of Jesus's life and Marduk's life and Moses' life and Thor's life and Shiva's life and Osiris's life, 33 years of age, 33 spinal columns in your spine. They go up your spine, charging with the Kundalini Kunda buffer energy of your chakras. And then they go back through your claustrum, where we get Santa Claus from. Santa Claus doesn't mean Saint Nick or Saint Claus. It actually means wise one. The word saint or Santa is not the Italian word or the Latin word. It's actually a Viking word. It's actually a Middle Viking or Middle Norwegian word that means grandfather or wise one or uncle. Tanta is currently the word for grandmother or auntie in 4 Viking languages in the north. Okay, Santa means the same thing. So Santa Claus means he who goes through the chimney, the wise one who goes through the chimney, the savior character. So there's a chimney in your brain stem called the claustrum. That oil goes through that and goes to your hippocampus, which is right about here in your brain. And it sits there dormant for 3 days. And at the end of 3 days, if you don't ejaculate, you don't have sex, you don't get drunk, you don't eat from the tree of life, that oil then explodes, goes to your optic thalamus and explodes with DMT and it illuminates all of your brain cells. But if you spend that energy and damage that oil by spending the energy of it, you get coal, like Santa Claus gives you coal if you're bad. You get a coal-like substance that lowers your vibration. This is actual true. Everybody in the world knows about it. Have you seen the crucifixion form? What are you saying? The cruciform, what are you saying? The cross-shaped DNA. No, I haven't actually seen that, but I've heard about it. Right? St. Nicholas, the bishop. That's what they try to tell you that it is. They try to tell you that it comes from St. Nick, right? The St. Nicholas, the bishop, that's where Santa Claus comes from, old St. Nick, but it's just not true. It doesn't come from that. It's a storytelling of the Kundalini fire, of the Christ oil that we're being told to children in the north. So be good for goodness sake, because Santa Claus is coming to town. Santa Claus means the wise one that goes through the chimney, not old St. Nick. But the church went, well, that's convenient. Old St. Nick is what you're talking about, because they were trying to keep people from realizing the Christ within. So it was the same story. The story of Thor is the same story of coming down. Thor comes down to earth. He has to fight the dragon of the North Sea. He becomes unalived. He's not, he's mortal. He's not a god. He becomes unalived, and then he gets resurrected because he dies for the people. Then he's resurrected, and he goes back across Bifrost, the Rainbow Bridge, back across the 33 vertebrae of the spine, and goes back to Valhalla, to heaven, to the heaved up place, which is in the the land of milk and honey. The oils are the milk and the honey mixed together. So literally, it's the same story being told to the Vikings, only no one realized it. Most theologians today are so busy worried about when something was written and who wrote it first that they're not paying attention to the actual, or they're not being paid to, like anthropologists, they're not being paid to, or they're being paid to not talk about what I'm talking about, but it's there. Anybody who wants to read it, you can look it up. You can read it. It's in every religion. Look at the religion instead of being worried about whose religion is the best one, or, there is only one God and, Muhammad is his prophet, or Jesus is his prophet, or get away from those third dimensional ideologies and look at the religion as a spiritual way. Stay away from religion. Religion recruits you. Spirituality waits for you to find it. Look for the things that they have in common, not the differences. There's semantical things like don't cut your hair at the side of your head, don't get a tattoo, don't eat pork, don't eat beef, don't do this, don't cuss, don't do that. Those things are laws that humans wrote. If you look at what the person was telling you who was here and what they did in the deeds that are there, you'll find that it was the same story. Moses did the same thing. Moses was a foretelling of a savior sent by God to free the Hebrew people. So the Pharaoh at the time ordered all of the people who were Jewish to be listed so that he could unalive the firstborn son. Sound familiar? Okay, so come forward in time. That was in the time of David, which was like 10 generations before Jesus. So we're looking at a couple thousand years later. Jesus, there's a foretelling that Herod finds that there's going to be a savior that's going to come alive from God, be sent in a Hebrew. He orders all of the Jews back to their hometown so he can do a census because he wants to unalive the firstborn. Same exact story. JC just told it in a different time. Same story. So it's the same everywhere. These sagas, the Viking saga, the Sword and the Stone from Excalibur, the Sword and the Stone, that's the same story, by the way. It's the exact same story. He who is worthy can wield the sword pulled from the stone. The sword being pulled from the stone is the oil that is going up to heaven that allows you to be, you have to be pious. You have to be good. It's the same thing. Now the story of Moses, literally he was hid in a basket and floated down the river. His name is Moses because that actually means pulled from the river or chosen one. So, or savior. So they called him Moses because he came out of the river. Now, coming out after that happened and the Hebrews are leaving, okay, with Moses, there's scrolls that were told from an ancient time before that made their way with them back to the free world. And eventually some monks from Scotland found these scrolls and asked the Hebrews, what are these scrolls? Is this the story of Moses? They said, no, this is a story that's older than the story of Moses. But the one thing that those monks realized was the telling of the story was the same. They were ordered in that scroll, the person was ordered to unalive someone because that person was the savior, and the person who was supposed to do the deed took the person, the baby, and went and was supposed to and throw it off a cliff, and instead it put it in a basket and floated it down the river. That story was added to the Kolbrin Bible, Kolbrin with a K, right, with the C with the hard line in the back of it, a K, Kolbrin Bible in Scotland. The first 6 books of that are the scrolls that came out of Egypt when Moses left Egypt with the Jews. But it wasn't Moses who had the scrolls, but it was the clergy who were, in fact, Egyptian and Hebrew. So they found those, got copies of them, and added them to their book because of the similarity to the story of Thor. Now think about this with the story of Osiris. Osiris was hidden because his father was going to eat him, and he was hidden in a basket and put in a cave. He wasn't floated down the river, but the same thing happened. And then when he went to go get the kid out of the basket to eat him, they changed the basket. They put a rock in there and took Osiris away. And then he ate the rock thinking he had ate his son, and Osiris grew up and eventually unalived his father and assumed the throne. Same story of Tiamat with Marduk. Marduk was sent down on earth. He was the great-grandson of Marduk, of Tiamat. He was a god, but he was in human form, and he had to go up against his grandmother, great-grandmother, if you look at the pantheon, and she was Tiamat the dragon. So he had to defeat the dragon. He was unalived, was saved, was then resurrected, defeated the dragon, and then was went up to become the light of the world and was given the head god status, right? Was that the Mosaic law? Well, Mosaic law. I'm not sure what you were talking about there, Lloyd, because I was talking so much I didn't see when you were asking that. Yes, the chosen people and the promise, and to fulfill the Savior of Jesus. Right. Well, everybody claims to be the chosen. What they don't realize, even with that, right, where they were supposed to be calling in and ushering in Jesus as the Savior, that religion to this day and the Sanhedrin at the time, it was inconvenient for them to lose their power to Jesus, so they had to get rid of him, right? So for political reasons, they got rid of him to keep their power, and then today they have to then say he's not legit, even though their Savior never showed up, right? So their Savior that was foretold, and they checked off thousands of boxes for that to happen, happened exactly when their whole Bible said so, and then they all said, no, that's just not true, and after that, they still say it's not true, right? Do you think that we'll ever have a world without war, poverty, darkness, that's pure love and oneness? No. Because this is an ecosystem that can't have that. The best thing that you can do here is take the power out of the hands of evil people and make it a utopian society, but there's always going to be evil people in third dimension. Okay, so when you move into fourth dimension, right? So when you move into fourth dimension, there'll be less evil control. When you move into fifth dimension, there'll be even less evil control. By the time you get halfway through the sixth dimension, evil can't go any further. Thank you for that. So evil has less control. In third dimension, they have total carte blanche, just like you do, to do whatever you want. So right now they've taken control of this, and they're holding you hostage by not allowing you to know the things that you're supposed to know, even though they're right in front of you. They're in every single spiritual practice. They're just discouraging you from looking in those books to find it. So because of that, you don't know that what I'm teaching you right now, and that even Lloyd knows, that people know if you look hard enough, once you start to look and you compare spiritual ways, not just religion, but you look at the different religions and you say, what's their creation story compared to the creation story of the religion that I'm part of? And then look at all the other creation stories, you see that they vary only slightly. They vary in the hierarchy. Is there a dual aspect, masculine, feminine, polyarchy, or is there a single monotheistic religion? Is it a masculine or a feminine? Masculine religions and monotheistic religions, or even the polytheistic, like the Greeks and the Romans, they still had gods and goddesses, but the god was in charge and the goddesses were not. So there was one male god that was in charge, warlike societies. The Christian religion has become a warlike societal religion created by Constantine in 329. So that was when the sacred feminine was pulled out of the religion. Mary was kicked to the back. No sacred feminine. Shut up, sit down, and fix me coffee and kick me, and take care of the kids. That's what the women have been for 2,000 years since they corrupted that. Okay, so it's become a war-driven religion. The Hebrew religion is the same, right? That's a male-dominated, one single god, no feminine. Therefore, it's a warlike culture. All the cultures on the planet right now that strive to these religions are vying for control. They're unaliving each other for control of the world, and they're masculine driven, no feminine driven. And there's no feminine in the religions. It's taken out and pushed aside. That's what they are doing. That's what happened to the Christian religion. It was being taught as a dual aspect, feminine equal to masculine, a way of getting out of here, and the balance of that. And then as soon as Constantine got a hold of it, who was an emperor in Rome, he made it Rome's religion and then retooled it and got rid of everything that was feminine or anything that told that the creator God was actually androgynous, that there is no sex when you get out of physicality, that you don't have a gender when you're out of physicality. Only in physical form is there physicality. And then it was, there is, it's God, and God's a man. Okay, so he took everything that was astral and pulled it down to the plane of humanism, and they've done that with all the religions. So everything mirrors the gods are human, bipedal, dressed in linen, right? That are sitting with a toga on or a burqa or something on, a hijab on, and they're sitting on a throne somewhere like a king. And that's who they tell you that your God is. And so therefore, when you see a king, it's easy for them to go, I am God on earth, because that's what they always do. Okay. How can you prove that there is gender and spirit? That's my point. You can't. But they get you thinking that there is, okay, by telling you that God is a man, and then they depict, drawings, which became paintings later on of them being a man sitting on a throne. And that they give them a gender. They give them a name. Zeus, a man. Apollo, a man. Right? Aphrodite, a woman. And that's what they do. And then when you watch the stories, they're children. They're high school kids sneaking out of the house at night, cheating on their wife, having sex with women down on Earth. It's just a high school, afternoon show, and that's what they do. And they all act like that, and they get mad. They don't even know they have children on Earth, and those are all the sagas from the Romans and the Greeks and their religion. Okay. So, do you think the Great Separation allows the humans to move to 5D beyond while still here on Earth? Not quite 5D, but we're moving into 4D now. We're moving into 4D, and we'll start thinking 5D, but you're not going to physically be into 5D. You're going to be physically moving into 4D. We're doing it now. It's happening. But there's still people here that are 3D, and some of them I call 2.5D, those ones that we all know about, the knuckle draggers. I'll say that to somebody, they'll make a comment and cuss me out online, and I'll go 3D. And then if they ever come back and go, what the hell does that mean? I usually respond with 2.5D, right? My wife was the first one that said that, and I started laughing because I called somebody 3D, and they got mad at me for calling him 3D and said, well, I don't know what you're trying to say by that. And Brooke said, that guy's not even 3D, dude. He's like 2.5D. And we both laughed, and I had to tell him that. So, right? I mean, it's true. Some people are 3D, and some people aren't even quite 3D yet, are they? They've moved from 2D. They've become self-aware, but they're still kind of 2D in a human form, aren't they? But it's unfortunately the way it works is, I laugh about it and I joke about it, but the way it works is that all of us were that. Okay, so the way it works is when you're in a two-dimensional being, you're a cat, a dog, a fish, a tree, a bird, a whatever, snake, a mongoose, whatever. You're something that's animate. you become self-aware at some point after lifetimes of living as those different things. You become self-aware. So when you become self-aware, then when that life ends, you then become a human on this earth, and a couple of other things, but I don't want to freak people out, right? A whale, a dolphin, a couple of different things that are non-human that are here with us, that some people don't want to know about. And but say you become human, so now you're born. You that's that Greek ideology of I think, therefore I am. Thank you. There's my wife. Thank you, baby. I love you very much. There's my wife right there. There's Brooke O'Neill. Follow her. That's my wife. So she must be on a break or off of work. It's 3:00. She's probably on a tea break. I love you, baby. So literally, now she threw me off track. I'm sorry, my wife popped in and I was in love again, and I forgot what I was talking about. What was I talking about? I honestly forgot what I was talking about. She just derailed me because I love her that much. I was like, oh, there's my wife. So I'm not sure what I was actually talking about. So the father is referred to as Abba. Yeah, that's the Hebrew language, Abba, right? Abba and what's mom? Mom's similar to that. So if you look at, see, a lot of times the words get in people's way and the way that they are reincarnation. Thank you, Brooke. So thank you, baby. I totally lost my train of thought because I literally was just loving my wife. Thank you, Brooke. So let me get back on track there, and then we'll get back to the words again, Lloyd. We'll talk about that too. Okay. So literally you reincarnate on Earth, and then normally you live about 7 to 10 lifetimes, right? And I don't mean all at once. You have 7 to 10 different lives, and in there you upgrade yourself and you move through 33. There's that run again. So there's 33 levels, right, in the third dimension, 33 levels in the fourth dimension. God likes things being very like uniform, being perfectly symmetrical. Everything is a cyclical nature. The universe itself, the way we work, is cyclical. So 7 to 10 lives, somewhere in there, you go from that Greek proverb of I think, therefore I am. That's being self-aware, and I think now I'm alive and I'm thinking I'm above the animals. My thinking process as a being, knowing that I am something, is not instinct like the animals, so therefore I'm superior to them. You learn that first, and then you move through that, and eventually, no matter what you do in life, it doesn't matter if you're spiritual, it doesn't matter if you're not, it doesn't matter if you're an atheist, eventually you will live life long enough to where you'll get tired of being here. You'll get tired of doing it over and over, even if you don't remember you're doing it over and over and you're veiled. You'll still be like, okay, there's lessons that I need to learn. When you're not in a body, you're going to be designing your life and programming it into this matrix. So you're going to be putting things in front of yourself to wake yourself up. So normally when you do that, oh, my wife's on her way home. I just got the message that she's on her way home. So when you start doing that, doesn't matter. So however you walk your pace, your walk is individual to every single one of you. You don't have to be spiritual. You don't have to be religious. You don't have to believe in God to get out of this place. The only thing you have to do is have experiences of being here. At some point, you will discover by hook or crook the Christ oil, even if you don't know about it and you're just living it. So if on that time of your month of your zodiac sign and the moon moving through that, if you just for instinct's sake don't have sex during that time period because you're old and gray maybe and you don't have anybody and you're not having any sex or whatever, and you're not eating of the tree of life because you're now trying to live longer, so you're eating healthier because I'm getting over to the end of it and I don't want to just become unalive soon. So just by doing that, you're going to raise your vibration because you're going to default to the way. You're going to default to, I need to eat better. I need to not be debauching myself, not smoking, not alcohol, not sex. I need to be living a little bit better life and eating and taking care of myself. So you'll be actually living the way of the Christ, the way that you were being taught by Jesus if you learned it. Even by default, everyone will go through that. So that's why they say that people, when they get older, usually get wise, because what happens is you, by default, whether you believe in God or not, whether you believe in a religion or not, you actually just start living the way anyways. And then you start getting wiser because it's raising your vibration, and you're getting smarter because, by the way, you get smarter and your IQ goes up. And because of that, then things start to unlock. And as things start to unlock and you start getting the actual universal downloads of information, you then start realizing everything that's going on. So that's why you see these old people that have been sitting around and they're quick as a whip. And they're like, they're lying to you. The governments are not to be trusted. I don't trust my doctor. And people like they're just a crotchety old person. Or are they? because that's what happens. Unless you're like, evil or self-serving, and then you don't care anyways. But if it's the other way around, you'll see these old people who will go, you need to stop listening to them. You need to take care of yourself. And they start telling us these things that we don't listen to when we're young. You need to eat better and stay out of the sun so much and take care of your body now. And we're just like, okay, they're just old and at the end of it, and we're not going to listen. No, but they've learned these things. And so they're now starting to do it, right? Why do I feel my body vibrating at times? Because it is. Your body, everything is vibrating. We all vibrate. Everything is energy, frequency, and vibration. Let me go back and see if I forgot stuff right. Going for my walk, right? Oh, okay. So you are on a tea break and you're just going for your walk. Okay, baby. Because I heard the thing. I thought you were coming home. I was like, I thought she wasn't going to be home until like 4:30 or something. All right. So she's gone on her walk. She's on her tea break. Okay. So is there really a choice, or was everything always meant to be the way? Let me go back to that. Or everything meant to be the way? Where is that? Meant to be the way it was meant to. No, there is a choice. We all have a choice, my friend. You have a choice of being either in service to self or in service to others. And then the way back to God is your own choice. You don't have to. This is what I was talking about. You don't have to be in any way religious. So no, I'm not preaching religion. That's my point, Jeff. You don't have to be in any way religious. You don't even have to believe in God. You don't have to, none of that. You don't even have to be spiritual. You don't have to believe in anything at all, because eventually you're just going to start living that way, right? So some people believe in religion and it's okay, right? I'm a minister of 4 religions, 5 spiritual practices, but I'm not going to push a religion on you, because religion recruits you. Spirituality waits for you to find it. You find your path back to the Creator. Whether you believe in a Creator or not doesn't matter. You will find your way out of here, okay? You will find your way out of this place and move into the next part of your journey. Okay, right? There's my wife's quoting, right? Religion recruits you, spirituality waits for you to find it. You will find your path to that, because just like electricity or water, the path of least resistance is always the path that we will travel. You as a person can choose to go the long route. We're different than anything else. We don't run on instinct, so we can choose our own path. But what happens is eventually you find out that the path you want to be on is the one that's least resistant. When you take the long road, it's harder. So when you go out there and you do your own thing and you're doing all that stuff, it's harder. So eventually what happens is you start finding your own path, and the way that it seems to be less strenuous on you. It has nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with a spiritual way. It just has to do with the way you live your life. And that's the whole purpose of it. If you learn, like Taoism, any spiritual practice is going to teach you the same thing, right? Change your algorithm. Your focus determines your reality. You see what my wife's saying there? Because that's the truth. Your focus determines your reality. So if you don't like your life, here's where you're going to get, like Mahatma Gandhi said, hashtag be the change, right? He said, be the change you want to see in the world. So if you don't like your life, change it. Your focus determines your reality. So the longer you focus on something, the more you're going to manifest that thing. So the secret to manifestation is stay focused. So your focus determines your reality. If you don't like your life, fix it. You have in your hand right now a device that has the entire knowledge of the human race, except for the things that the people who don't want you to know about certain things took out and they're hiding from us. But everything else, and even speculation about what they took out and they're hiding from us, all of the knowledge of everything is at your disposal now, and people are not using it because you're being discouraged. Okay, you're being discouraged by the algorithms to look at things that have nothing to do with anything whatsoever on how to get out of here. So if you stop doing all those things and take all the time that you do just scrolling and hitting swipe, and then say, how do I get off this rock? And I don't want to do anything in a religious standpoint. You're going to run into guys like me that's going to say you don't have to be. All you have to do is live your life. All you have to do is live your life, but you have a choice to make. You're either going to be in service to self, which is evil in the mind of the universe, or you're going to be in service to others, which is obviously the opposite. It's good. How you live your life is going to determine which one of those things that you are going to become. Okay. And then both of those things are going to determine how long it's going to take you to get off of this third dimensionality to the next dimension. Okay. So if you're going to be evil, you have to be really evil to get out of here. Otherwise, you're just going to keep recycling. So if you're going to be evil, you got to be really bad. If you're going to be in service to others, you only have to be 51%, but it's almost as hard as being that evil to get out of here, because this place is keeping you from being that, because they're putting stuff and crime and things right in front of your face on purpose. Okay. Is it possible for one to do both? No, it's not. Some people say, "Oh, I'm balancing and I'm right down the center." The balance that you're talking about is the balance between masculine and feminine. The balance that you're talking about is the balance between light and dark, but not the choice of what your soul is. Okay, you're either self-serving or you're not. Okay, people who are self-serving pretend they're not. People who are not self-serving never pretend to be self-serving. That's just the way it works. It's the nature of the beast. Okay. So people who say, I'm just, I'm neutral. That's a self-serving person who wants you to think that, because people who are in service to others are proud of it. They never say, I'm neutral. But are you supposed to also take care of yourself? Yes. And they try to convince you, and this is how they do that to get you to be confused. They try to convince you that if you're in service to others, you have to be holier than thou and take care of others, and you have to be ashamed to take care of yourself. And that way you burn out, and that way you stop doing it. And that's why the societal structure is created that way, to get you to do that stuff. Okay. So yeah, 51% is like that 1%, right? I mean, that 1% is the difference. But it's hard because this place is designed, because bad people are in control of it. It's designed to keep you away from just that 1% over 50. Think about it. They call it programming for a reason. Everything on television is cheating, right? Lying, stealing, cheating. That's what it is. Every single program that's on television that is supposed to be Big Brother or any of those that's supposed to be fake is all scripted. And it's all about cheating, lying, and stealing and getting over on somebody. So it's about being evil. The person who is the most self-serving wins that show every time. Okay? That is their script. So when you watch stuff, it's always big, bad, evil people attacking good people, but in the end, it's going to be okay. Right? So then people go, well, there are no consequences. I can do whatever I want, because that's what they teach you. They teach you there are no consequences. Do what thou wilt. Whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Do you see? So if you go to a certain place, you can lie, cheat, steal, and have sex with anybody that you want. You can do all the things that the devil says that you can do, but God says you're not supposed to do, and no one will know, because you just don't have to tell anybody. Okay? So that stuff is what they do to you in everything. And the algorithms on these platforms do the same thing. If you hit like on something a couple of times, you're going to get more of that. How did you find me? You found me because you people hit like on something that was spiritual, something that was in some way religious or spiritual. That's the only reason you found me. Or you just kept swiping and you didn't hit like on anything, and I happened to be online, and because of the amount of hearts that I have, which is not very many for how long I've been on the air, I've been on the air for almost 2 hours and I only have 15,000. So for you guys that popped in here, it's because it's in your algorithm in some way. So what happens if you detach from everyone? That's part of when you're going through stuff. And I know there's probably guys, I apologize if some of you asked questions before that and I didn't see them, because sometimes when I'm talking, your questions scroll by so fast. So if I miss it, and you see that it's been gone for like a minute or two, type it back in and in there. But if you do capitals too much, then one of the moderators will boot you out. So please don't do that. So let me get back to that question, right? Because like Phoenix is like talking to one of the guys as it is at Balls. Love that name, Balls Chicken. Is that somebody's name? I love that. So what happens if you detach from everyone? Part of what you go through as your progression happens, as you start to pierce the veil and you start waking up, part of your progression is the anger phase. You move into, man, I can't believe they're doing this to us. We got to fight against that. Then you'll go through there and you start yelling at everybody. Then you go into that phase of, you need to wake up, and you're asleep, and you're asleep, and you're asleep. And then eventually you get into the phase where you realize that everybody's going to be where they're going to be. And it doesn't matter what you do, what I do, that everyone's still going to go through where they need to go through. Then you go into the hermit phase. And when you go into the hermit phase, you just pull back away from everybody. There's nothing wrong with that phase, because that helps you. At that point is when you end up focusing on yourself. Okay, so whether you do it early on or not, you're going to do it, because as you start to wake up, you're going to go into the hermit phase where you're going to start researching stuff. And so you're going to stay away from other people. Your family members and friends are going to think you're cuckoo in some way, because you're saying shit now that it seems really crazy to them. You're starting to sound like one of those conspiracy theorists. People used to call me conspiracy theory Leo because of it, right? So then at first it's going to bother you, and that's how you hermit. You pull back from everybody because it bugs you, because they're talking smack about you. Eventually you're not going to care about that anymore either. And you're just going to go, whatever, that's where they are. 3D, 2.5D, that one's a monkey. knuckle dragger, put the brow down. You know what I mean? When you get to that point, eventually, then you won't care that your circle gets small. At first, it sucks because you have all these friends and family members, and then your circle gets real small, and that's when you end up in the hermit phase because you don't really have much choice. They move away from you as much as you're moving away from them because you are. That's okay to do as long as you don't stay there. But it doesn't matter if you stay there as well. Some people stay there for a couple lifetimes and they just keep researching, and really good comes out of that. Eventually, you will move past the hermit stage and realize that, okay, it doesn't matter what I do because everybody's on their own anyways. However, I can assist and I can actually serve as an example for some of the people who will then turn around and do what I'm going to do now and help people. So it helps people to keep moving along. So it doesn't matter what you do. You guys can do it however you want. That's why I tell people that, right? So that phase that I'm in now, the hermit phase, right? Yeah, 2.5 is the best. I know. I'm gonna know that my wife created that, right? Because I was going, that guy's 3D, that guy's 3D, that chick's 3D, and she was like, that guy's not even 3D yet. He's 2.5D. So Brooke is the one that gets credit for that. I hope that becomes a saying worldwide, and people look at somebody and go, that guy's not even 3D, dude. He's 2.5D, right? I hope you guys just pass it on, right? So I heard you should detach so that you don't come back here. Well, in that sense, you're right about that in that sense, because by that, eventually when you do detach, because you're doing a lot more internalization, then you're doing like Carl Jung talked about, and he's the one that brought that to light in the beginning was doing that. So you end up detaching from everyone so that you can really do the inner work that you need to do about yourself, fix yourself, and then you can grow. So we all go through it either way, right? Thank you for that. Who gave me that? Oh, I'm Seraphim gave me that. And the other stuff that you gave me, and High Vibes gave me a rose too. Thank you guys. I didn't see that. So what's your advice for young adults awakening, please? Same thing. Be you. Be you. Don't let other people tell you how you're supposed to do anything. Okay? Everything. My advice to my stepson when a friend of his ex-girlfriend had passed, and he was the one that found her because they called him to go and do a wellness check, and he went in with the sheriff and found her deceased. He didn't get emotional and freak out and do all this, and everybody was telling him how he supposedly should be, going through the stages of grief over this woman. And he called me, and I said, don't let him tell you how you're supposed to do that. It's up to you. So as a young person, do you, be you, and don't let anybody tell you and put you into a box. I'll do what you want to do and how you want to do it, because you're only going to have your life in this lifetime once. You'll have another life, but you won't remember it unless you unveil. So you're only going to live one time, so live it. That's what you're supposed to do here. You're supposed to live your life. Eventually, you'll either become unalived and start over because you'll do something dumb and get hurt, or you'll become wiser for it, and then you'll settle down, or you'll do something. You'll evolve the way you're supposed to. I posted a reel that I made once, and it showed this forest of bamboo and trees, and it's just this walkway, and it was kind of fogged over, and literally it just says, not knowing where and when the journey ends is the whole point of the journey. Okay. And that came from a Native American who said that. Okay. So you have to realize that's your journey. Your journey is what you're supposed to do, right? Favorite book of all time. I don't know that I have one favorite book, because everything I believe that, and I have found, because being a theologian, that the more I read, the more I've learned, right? So I'm not done learning, because anyone who says they know everything is lying to themselves, right? So I don't know that I have one single favorite book. Yeah, I don't know. Let me think about that, and I'll see if I can come up with a book that I really liked reading and enjoyed it. I am a nerd, so I enjoy reading the Bible and and doctrine like that. I've made a life of doing it, so I read spirituality, right? So I don't know, right? Do you know anyone who does past life regression? I have heard it's well worth it. You know, I could do it, but I would teach you to do it on your own. If you wanted to learn your past lives, I would teach you to look within, because as you look within and fix yourself, you're going to then expand your consciousness. And when you expand your consciousness, you're going to unlock the ability to actually know who you were in your past lives anyways. So instead of paying an outside person I teach this, even though we teach courses and I do psychic readings, and so does my wife. I would prefer to teach you how to read yourself, right? You can't actually have a psychic reading on yourself. So you actually, even psychics have to go to other psychics because you're too close. However, you can do your own life regression on yourself by actually accessing the Akashic records or the halls of Amenti, whatever you know that as, that record place where you can actually look at and find out who you were. I know every single life that I've had. I know who I was in every single lifetime on this earth, going back 128,000 years. Most of you have only been here for maybe 70,000 years. The majority of the people that have been here for between 36 and 1,000 years and a few thousand years. Most of you haven't been here that long. I was here in the last 2 cycles as well as this one. I know that I was a Native American. I was Native American as well. I lived in California, and I'm actually related to myself. Weirdly, that's the way I designed my life. I'm actually, the DNA that's in the 5% DNA in me that's native is actually from my own ancestor, from myself. It's weird that way. Sometimes it works out that way. You should check out the Christ Harrison Bible. I don't know if I've seen that one, the Harrison Bible. The Christ Harrison Bible cross-reference. I see. Yeah, you had said something about that before, right? I need to look that up. Visualization chart. It's incredible. I'm going to look that up. Hold on. I'm going to take a screenshot of what you just said there. So let me get my camera going here. And I'm going to take a screenshot of that, my friend, as soon as I get the camera working, and I'm going to look that up, okay? See, this is why I like talking to people, Lloyd, because you just literally gave me stuff to think about, and I'm literally now going to be taking a picture here let me turn my camera around. Why is that not turned around? Of this, and I'm going to look that up and read it and look into it and take a look at what you're talking about. Okay, so let me get back on track over here. Right, thank you, Lloyd, for that. Yeah, I would love to. How do I do that? If you hold on here. Okay, so high vibes email list right here at Gmail at merlinandmaeve@gmail.com. Tell us who you are in the thing. Say I'm high vibes from there. We can actually, we have a couple of options to wake you up, but they take a year, right? The Christ oil is one of them. Becoming a Reiki healer is one of them, or just working with a straight. But the cheapest way would be going down the Reiki path, becoming a Reiki healer, and then you could actually benefit from that because you could actually heal people and do the same thing. But there's other ways of doing it. So if you want to figure that out, email Brooke and I at merlinandmaeve@gmail.com, and then we'll give you the information and you can look into that, right? Do Reiki work for everyone? Yes and no. It works on everyone if you allow it. But if you put up a block against it and say, this isn't going to work and I'm not going to accept this energy, then it won't work, right? Because you're saying no to the energy. You have to accept the energy, and then the energy will actually work for you, right? So why is my screen... Now my screen's being weird over here, and it's showing I got the chat up on the screen now over here instead of being down at the bottom because I was playing around with my phone. So yeah, so if somebody Reikis you, if you're accepting of it, then because the energy that I, as a Reiki practitioner, I push energy through myself. I transmute energy from the universe, through the Kundalini and Kunda buffer energies, comes through into me, and then I channel that energy through my hands out into you. If you accept that energy will go into your body and it will tune you up. And anyone who's ever done that, we do it at fairs where we have a massage table that we set up, and we're selling a jewelry that we make, which will all be on our website when we get it complete, because the website's up right now, but it doesn't have all that on there. And then we actually do Reiki on people, and people show up and go, "What's this?" And it's Reiki, and this is what it is. And they're like, "Okay, let me try it." And by the time they leave, people ask them if they've done drugs. You walk away and you're like, "Yeah, man, this is cool." And you have like this energy for like 3 days. And people go, "Wow," literally we Reiki'd one of my students before she became a student. And she went back over. She was actually a person selling stuff at another booth. And she went over there, and her daughter came in and was talking to her and said, "Mom, did you eat a gummy or something? Are you high?" And she goes, "No, what are you talking about?" She goes, "'Cause wow, man, you're chill." And she goes, "Oh, I went over there and got Reiki." And her daughter was like, "What's Reiki?" And she came over and got some Reiki. So yeah, right. you're a Reiki master as well, right? Celine, I'm a Reiki master as well. My wife and I both are, and we actually teach that. So good for you, right? Yeah, and I believe in Jesus. Yeah, why would you not? You don't have to be not believe in certain things, because a lot of people do that with like people who are pagans. You know, they're druids. I'm also a Merlin. I have the druid high priest title of Merlin. So pagan Wiccans, then people will say, well, then you can't believe in God. What? You can't believe in Jesus? Why? Why can I not? Right? So yeah, that's crazy when people do that. What is awakening? Oh, okay. So, Bella, it's you as you're here in this place, you have a veiling right now that you don't remember who you are. Okay. You think this body is who you are. Okay. That's the veiling. You're actually asleep right now, and you don't know that you are. Right. So the true you is not actually this person. Okay. But you don't know that. This is the journey that you're on here in third dimension, is to discover that. Okay. So at some point in your existence, you will start to realize that you're not this pain body. You're not this place, that you're here, but you're something else. Right. And then eventually you'll start moving into 4D thinking. And that is when you realize that you're actually not a physical being at all, that you're a light being. So as you do that, this veiling that is on you, that you don't have amnesia, starts to crack, and you start being able to see through the cracks, and you start waking up more to your true self of who you actually are. That's the progression of what you're supposed to do in third dimensionality. So the awakening is the realization that I am not the pain body. So when you first get here, it's I think, therefore I am. Then when you wake up enough, it's I am, therefore I think. And I only point up at that point because you should really point inward, because there's no actual place. And most people who believe that there is a God, they point up. So I always point up, but truly there is no up, down, left, or right, because there is just beingness. And so eventually you realize that you're more than this physical body, and that you are something else. That's the awakening. You start to awaken to the realization that you're not this place, and that this place is actually an illusion, and it's not actually what you think it is, right? So yeah, that's the true self-consciousness. Yes. Okay. So in fact, that's also a veil. I hate to tell everybody, that's also a veiling, because you have a higher self that is anchored halfway through the sixth dimension, and you're on the third dimension right now. You're a little above halfway through the third dimension, most of you on average, right? So, double where you're at now compared to when you were a blade of grass or a rock or a piece of dirt or an amoeba. Double that, and that's where the sixth dimension is. And there you're in a density, not in dimensionality anymore, because there you're in a light body, and you're not in a physical body, you're in an energy body. So, but there's still a veiling, because that's only halfway back to the creator at the sixth level. So there is another awakening that is beyond that, right? Where you have a higher self. And that's just before you wake up to become the creator. There's another you that's up there, that's in the 10th, 11th, 12th dimension density, because there is no dimensionality there. And that might be too much. I don't know. Do old souls have different motives than the younger ones? Well, yes. But you can't look at someone just because they seem very 2.5D or very 3D and assume that this is their first life here, because they can be doing it backwards from the way you're doing it, right? So truly, you can't judge that, but you can usually tell when you wake up enough. You can look at someone and go, that's a young soul, that's an older soul. Older souls have already gotten 4 or 5 lifetimes behind them, usually 6 or 7 lifetimes behind them, and so that even though they're still veiled here, they're more prone to be closer to unveiling. So you'll see that older souls live more free. Older souls, not just people that are 80 or 90. You could have somebody who comes through who's 10, 12, 14 years old, but the soul that's inside has been on this earth for like 7, 8 lifetimes or more. And you can just see that. You know how you do that? You look at somebody who's young and you go, there's an old soul in there. In this life, but I've been awake the entire time, so it might be a bad example, but when I was about 8, 9 years old, maybe a little bit less, I was about 8 years old, my parents were having this party of, family get together at the holidays. And I was sitting there, and I'm as awake now as I am then. I was awake then as I am now. but I had to not tell everybody about it because, if you're 8 years old and you talk like this, people trip. So I'm sitting there, and my cousin Virginia, God rest her, she's on the other side. She hasn't returned yet, but she's on the other side. She was talking to me, and she was very awake. And so she started talking to me, and I realized that she was awake enough so that I could kind of give her some real information. And she looked around and started asking me some more questions. And I was talking to her, and she says, "Excuse me," and the whole crowd, all of our family. Does anybody else notice that this 8-year-old boy talks like he's 35 years of age? Does anybody notice that? And everyone's like, yeah, that's just the way he is. He says some crazy stuff sometimes. Anyway, and they all went back to what they were doing, except for my father, who knew that I was awake. And my father walked over and said, "What's going on over here?" And he looked at me like the first rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club, right? So different people have different ways and you can see someone who's of an older soul. You're going to see that they're a little bit more less apt to be stuck in likes and clicks and power and money and fame, and more living their life their own way and beating their own drum to their own. You know what I mean? They're going to their own tune. They're swimming upstream instead of with the pack, and they're doing their thing, and they don't care what anybody thinks, man. You're going to find that those people are like that. Some people are just that way, and people laugh at them and think they're crazy, but they're just living their life, right? What does it feel like to wake up when you're to your true self? It's crazy because if you're not born awake, I was born awake in this life. I remember being in the womb. I remember before that. If you're not born awake and you start piercing the veil, it's difficult because you go through those steps that I was talking about before. You start seeing through the cracks and you start going, hey, I don't think everything that people are telling us is right. And you start looking through that crack, and as the veil starts to become a little thinner, you start going, those motherfuckers are lying to us on television. The politicians are lying, the TV's lying. Man, they're controlling everything. And you start sounding crazy. Okay? And you're going, don't you see it? These people are just, and then some people, when they don't realize it, they'll say, is it just me, or are these guys lying to us where they used to hide it from us? And now they're not even hiding it anymore. As soon as somebody says that to me, I'm like, they've never been hiding it. The difference is you're aware of it right now because you're starting to pierce the veil. So the process is kind of shitty because your friends and family shrink. The amount of people that are in your circle shrinks. And then you feel lonely, and you're like, is it worth it? And why am I doing this? And then you go through them attacking you because you're doing this. So that part's kind of hard until you see more. And then once you see more, then you get angry, and then you go through that process of you're awake and you need to wake up, and can't you see what's going on? And nobody listens to you, and they think you're crazy. And then you have to get through that anger part, and then move into the part of realizing this is an ecosystem. Then it starts to get easier, but it's not, because you feel bad because you're in this place that you can't do anything about, and you know it, but it's going to do it itself anyways, and everybody's going to find their own path when they're supposed to. That's when you go into the hermit stage. And then eventually, because you're in the hermit stage, then you start doing your own shit, and you're like, whatever, man. I'm going to do my own stuff, and you guys be you, and I'm going to be me, and then everyone thinks you're a hippie. And then you kind of are, because that's the way hippies are, right? So then you're just going to be exploring everything. You're going to be doing crazy shit that you wouldn't normally do. You're going to learn about different religions, and you're going to screw that. I was a Christian my whole life. I'm going to be a Buddhist now. And you're going to go down that path of reading all these other spiritual ways. You might even do drugs. You might do dumb stuff. And then eventually you'll start to get away from that. And once you wake up, you're going to get annoyed. This is normal too. You get annoyed, and then I'll get to I am Seraphim. I'll get to your question. Then you get annoyed because you learn about your higher self, you learn about your guides, and then everybody shuts up and they don't talk to you anymore. And you're like, what the fuck, dude? No one's talking to me. And it's because they're waiting for you to realize that you've been awake for already and you don't know it. And you're like, I'm trying to wake up and nobody's talking to me and I don't hear anything. And what the hell? How am I supposed to? And it's because you're in your own way. Everybody just stops and they back away from you and they wait until you get tired and you go, forget it. Fuck it. I'm going to sit down. Screw all you guys. I'm doing nothing. I'm going to go back to hermiting. Done with you. All this. Then you sit down and you go, oh crap, I've been awake the whole time and didn't know it. Then it becomes real easy. You have no fear of anything. It becomes easy. Right. So let me go back up and see what the question was here. Let's see. You guys have a lot of questions, right? Do old souls? Okay, I'm going back up to there. Can you talk about spiritual psychic readings? Yes, I teach that. If you're interested in that, email me. And we'll go over that. Email me right here. You see the email. What does it feel like when you wake up? I went over that. All the spiritual beliefs. Do they somewhat keep you rooted in ego presence? No. Yes and no, because you have to actually have the ego to help you move forward, right? The ego helps the conscious give you a balance to move forward. So a lot of people don't even talk about the conscience. That's the opposite to the ego. Everybody says ego, 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 and they don't ever tell you the opposite. The opposite is the conscience, right? If you're reincarnated, how will you know your purpose if your past life doesn't fit to the present? Each life is individual. Each life is individual that you live, and the things that you are setting down for yourself to learn in each life. The only way that they'll bleed over into the other one is if you didn't learn a lesson that you were trying to learn in your past life. Then you'll have the same things come up again because you didn't. Then you're putting those in your path because you wanted to learn that. So every life will be completely different, right? I'm going to get, what is that, Arthur'd? Is that what you're saying? You're going to get Arthur'd? I'm not quite sure what you're saying there. Satan deceives a lot of people too. Well, the whole idea of that, yeah, that Satan is the personification of the ego, Lloyd. So absolutely, Satan plays the role of the ego for everyone in spirituality. So you have the ego, you have the devil on your left shoulder and the angel on your right shoulder. That's your ego and your conscience. And then there's the ego, everything that manifests in the spiritual, as above, so below, as within, so without. So everything that we're manifest in us is playing out in front of us. So what's happening inside of me is the battle between the darkness and the light. And that's what's happening between you, and that's what's happening in our physicality, in the physical world. It's the same. So in the spiritual, we have the Satan and God dichotomy. In the physical, we have the evil, whatever you want to call that, whatever you believe that is, Genghis Khan, Adolf Hitler, Antichrist. You have that playing out in the battle between good and evil and the control over the world. And that's what's going on within you. That's what's going on within the world. That's what's going on within spirituality. It's all the same, right? So all of that works in the same conjunction, energy, frequency, vibration. So physicality, spirituality, and personal, yeah, right. So the ego equals ESS God out, right? So it erases the more that you become egoic. That's why, like in the Jedi way, if you go down the dark path forever, it dominates your destiny. The more you start becoming egoic, the closer, the further away you go from the source, from God, because you're going into the darkness. So if you listen to your ego, then you move away from God, right? So you become darker and darker and darker by listening to your ego, and you'll end up becoming evil, and you'll do bad things. You'll steal, you'll cheat, you'll eventually murder somebody or whatever, right? I'm gonna take a drink of my coffee. This is not alcohol. I do not drink alcohol. Everybody becomes, I love your name, balls, chicken balls, right? I love that. That's like, winner, chicken dinner. Everybody eventually will wake up. That's the way it works. You don't do it all the time, all at once. That's not the way it's supposed to work. The way it's supposed to work is the ecosystem is in place, and individually we pop off. And then we stop coming back and we go to the next plane of existence, and this place just stays perpetual, right? That's normally how it works. The Occam's razor is that, right? That normally, all things being equal, everybody comes in here and you go at your own pace. It's go at your own pace when, pass, fail. Go at your own pace and you move on to the next plane. But bad people got a hold of the knowledge of what I know, and then they've taken control of that, and they're pulling it away from your eyes. It's right in front of you. It's there for you to see, but they're distracting you with everything else. What's the deepest or the most intense experience you've had in your life? In this life or in general? In this life, the birth canal hurts because it squeezes your head and your shoulders. And when I was born, they pulled you out and smashed you on your ass with a hand slap to get you breathing. So going from being hooked up on an umbilical cord for food and breathing embryonic fluid, and the temperature is like 98.5 degrees, chilling in a sauna, to the sauna flushes, and you're turned around upside down, and sometimes they grab your head with tools, and they pull you out, and it's cold, and they lift you up and smack you on your ass and cut your food supply off and wrap you up into this cloth that is sticking to your skin and take you away. That part kind of sucks. So I don't know what the question, right? So my most intense experience, Lloyd, there was a time when I did not work for governments, when I was not in Indochina, and I did not get captured, and I was not tortured, and I did not have to fight my way out, and I did not go to Tibet, and I did not come back to this world. That event that never happened was pretty intense. The Mogadishu event in '94 was pretty intense. My name will never be told as one of the people being there. However, I was there, but I wasn't there as this person that I am now. So that was pretty intense. I don't know what you guys want to know, right? I just Googled you, and you're really knighted by the Roman Catholic Church. Yes, I am. Yes, I was. Yeah, I am a Roman Catholic knight. Yes. Right. Did you find me? Because you can find me in the database for the Roman Catholic Church. Did you actually just do that, Lloyd? You're the first person who actually did that, by the way. If you did do that, I am knighted by the Roman Catholic Church. I was knighted by them, and I'm not lying about that. Right. So the lesson is to be free and do what you enjoy. Yeah, I mean, truly, that's how you're going to become who you are. Stop listening to the ways that people are telling you you're supposed to live your life. You live your life the way you want to live your life. They want to put you in a box. People who are linear minded, self-serving people who are linear minded, and linear minded people, even if they're in service to others, they're linear minded. They're the ones who create orthodoxy. Okay, like churches. Here's the way you're supposed to worship Jesus, and you got to do this and come in. If you're a Roman Catholic, Lloyd, he'll tell you, right? We sit down, stand up, kneel, sit down, stand up, kneel 10, 15 times in a mass. Most of you guys who are just regular Christians, you don't have nothing on us Roman Catholics, man. We're down, up, sit down, stand up. Lord be with you. Sit down, stand up, and also with you. And sit down, stand up, right? Lloyd, oh yes. So there's an orthodoxy to that. They made this way that we're supposed to be, and it's the same way. And if you've been to a Roman Catholic church your whole life, you do it out of automatic. You know exactly when you're supposed to stand up. You know exactly what you're supposed to say, when you're supposed to say it, because it's drilled into you like a drill sergeant. Right? They do the same thing in societal structures. If you grew up in the United States, I don't know if they still do this, but when I was a kid, I pledge of allegiance to the flag. I know the whole fucking thing. I did it every day of my life from the time I went into kindergarten until I graduated, right? You know it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Orthodoxy, bro. Brainwashing. So they do that in every walk of life. Now, I'm not saying you should be breaking laws. I'm not saying that you should do anything like that and do stupid things and unalive people. But don't live by the way everyone else lives, man. I don't care who you are. I'm a hippie. I don't have any hair on my head right now. But if you guys saw me 30 years ago, I had hair down in the middle of my back to my butt, okay? When I was in my 20s, I have 2 piercings. I used to have 3, and I used to wear long piercings, and I used to be a hippie, dude. I walked around, and I was like, anarchy, right? So live your life. Live your life the way that you want to live it. Don't listen to anybody else, because what they're going to do is they're going to put you in the box of a worker bee, because that's all you're being taught if you're in the United States or anywhere in Europe, in a European style country, even here in Australia. European style country makes you a worker. That's all they train you to be. They don't train you to be anything besides that. They discourage you from being anything so that you don't compete with them and you don't take their power away from their legacy, from their family. Okay. Yeah, I grew up Roman Catholic. Only dope thing was cathedrals and learning about mystics. Yeah, that's right. I mean, truly, when you start learning about the spirituality and you start going and looking at the cathedrals, man, those are so beautiful. If you're Roman Catholic and you've never heard of a Catholic Mass done in Latin, you're missing out. Go to a place where they're still doing it in Latin and they're still chanting. You're going to find out what everybody knew for like 1,500 years. Okay, almost 1,800 years until they stopped doing it in Latin. If you're in California, they still do it in San Bernardino and San Francisco. Okay. You should look that up. Yeah, the Byzantine rites. Yeah, right. I mean, whew. And then if you hear him do it in Spanish, it's still pretty good, right? I was in the San Francisco Bay Area at St. Catherine's of Siena and Martinez. That's 6033 or 6034 for those of you who are knights. That's my parish, and the number 70, fourth degree is 70 was Antioch. It was Sir Knight Dr. Thomas Dooley, number 70. That's my fourth degree parish for those of you who are Knights of Columbus. So over at 6039, I said that wrong. 6039 with St. Catherine of Siena and Martinez, California, mostly Hispanics and Italians in that church. So the bishop would come to the church sometimes, and being a knight, I was guarding him, and then I was actually one of the personal guards of the bishop. They love me. Ex-military, love that stuff, right? So they would do the mass in Spanish too, in Castilian, and that's kind of pretty. But Latin, I'm telling you, bro, Latin is the shiznick. If you can ever hear it in Latin, even if you don't understand what they're saying, you can kind of follow along with the Bible in English and know what they're saying. But if you know Latin and you hear them do that in chanting in Latin, it is one of the greatest things. I tell you, truly, you should do that. But cathedrals, if I could ever get to the Basilica, Brooke and I are planning on doing that in Rome. We're going to go there. We're going to go to Jerusalem, to the Basilica in Jerusalem too. The rock. We're going to go to Golgotha and to the Basilica down below. But we have plans for that, and Rome to go to the Vatican. We have plans to do that. There's some places, if you're a Christian or a Judeo-Christian, or even anything else, there's some places that you should see in the world, right? The song we sung in Latin, songs Gregorian. Oh, you love Gregorian chant, brother. I love Gregorian chant. I'm hooked on it. I still listen to Templar chanting, Gregorian chanting, the Hospitaller night chanting, the old stuff. I still listen to like Ave Regina in the Templar Latin. Oh man, if you guys, I'm crazy for language anyway. I speak 28, but I'm crazy for the chants in all of Christendom. And I know that some of you who are, like other religions might get mad at me right there, but I am a minister and a knight of the realm, of the Catholic realm, the holy realm, not the. So for me, actually, I'm not 100% fluent in all 28 languages, but I speak 28 languages. Yeah, 30 if you count English, and if you count Klingon, right? But then I also speak Spanglish because I grew up in America, and it's because I speak Spanish. Spanish is my second language, and then Norwegian is my third language, and then German is my fourth. And then most of the European languages I'm better at because this language is based on all those languages, right? You speak Turkish. I got to learn Turkish. I'm starting to learn Turkish because I'm learning the Middle East, right? I'm learning Yiddish, and so you got to go back to Sanskrit, and then you got Arabic and Yiddish and all of that, and so Turkish. Yeah, Turkish is pretty. I like listening to Turkish. You know Turkish, Lloyd? That's cool. I love. There's some of those languages are so beautiful. Like the Norwegian language, the Middle Norwegian, the Icelandic, they speak a Middle Norwegian. It's really pretty. Norwegian's really pretty. The Svenska's really pretty. You get to the east, you get away from the Byzantine area because the Greeks got in there and they messed things up. So you get away from the Greek and the Roman or the Latin languages, and you get back to the base roots. So when you get to the Turkish, and you start going to that native that is those languages from the Middle East, they're so beautiful. Oh, they're so pretty to hear. They're so old and they're so beautiful. And because Swahili and like I said, anything that goes back to Sanskrit, all of the Arabic and all of that, the Turkish is a form of that is just beautiful to listen to. I bet if you could speak it, I would love to. Once I learn it, we'll have to talk, right? Just so I can practice French. I'm good at French. French is like my fourth or fifth language. Because French is the same. French is Latin based, right? So you have Spanish, Portuguese, French, Italian. They all came from Latin, right? So they're all Latin based. So French is just another way of it's just a dialect of Latin. I tell people that, and they kind of get weirded out. And I'm like, no, it is really. I mean, we get our word lion, which comes from a Greek word. So we're not even going from the Latin, but it goes from the Greek word Leo, right? So and my name's Leonard, so Lionheart, right? Leo. So here's how the progression goes in that, and I'll show you some Latin as well, right? So you look at that Leo. The word Leo in French is pronounced Lion, and it's spelled Lion, Lion, like Orléans, right? Old lion, Orléans, or Lyon, right? So Lyon, France, or Leo. So Leo is spelled Lion, but it's pronounced Lyon. That word is a word that we say as lion now because we changed where the sound is, lion instead of lion, lion, Leo, right? So we use the word lion like it's a new word. It's not, right? So the language, the way that it goes, it comes from these base roots. So you have like the word Jesus, okay? The word Jesus that we use now, right? Yeah, right. Yeah, Latin, right? We have the word Jesus now, and people go, his name's not Jesus, it's Yahshua. And I'm like, that's the same word. It's just spoken differently from a different language. It ended up in the Greek and then translated from Greek to Latin and then eventually to English. So the Greek word for Yahshua, right? Yahshua, Joseph, Yahshua, right? The Yahshua translated into Greek as Yeshuas. And that Yeshuas translated into Latin as Jesus, the word that we use now in English. So, right, yeah. So, Yeshuas, yeah. See, issue, yeah. So it literally just a translation, like I showed you from Leo to lion. It means the same thing. It's not a different word. It's actually just spoken wrong. It's spoken differently by a dialect because we have a Latin dialect, and this Latin dialect has a flavor from the Norwegian. Okay, so that's where we got that from. Middle English is almost Middle German, and Middle German is almost the Norwegian. Norwegian and Svenska are the two languages that came out of Old Norse. The Old Norse is our alphabet in English that we're using currently. Everything you see here is Old Norse alphabet. The only thing is we added to it, like the K, we took the sound and we knew that the S, like Celtic or Celtic, one is a hard letter, and there's only, it's just a C, so there was no way to tell. So they added a line at the back of it to show that it was a K sound, right? I'm also fluent in Futhark too, Elder Futhark, and most of the Futhark. So those languages, I'm actually fluent in another 5 of those written languages, but those aren't spoken because they're written in the language that you speak. So I could write it in English or in German or Spanish or Norwegian, right? But those are a form of writing, right? I'm also halfway decent in Ogham, which is the stick writing from the Irish. I learned that as well. So it's the most interesting live stream that I've said that I've had live now. Thank you. This is what I'm here to do. I'm here to try and help in some way. But we just happen to get on to linguistics, and thank you for that. We just happen to get on to talking about language. So language is, like if you look back in the Bible, they said, God said, I'm going to have them speak in tongue. Truly, what just happened there was that people just with a dialect changed the way we say shit. That's all. People that like, if you look at America, any country, you have the North, the South, the West, and the East all say the same words slightly different, right? I'm over here in Australia, and they evolved away from England for almost as long as America has been. America's 250 years. Australia is 148 or 150 years separated from England. The language that they speak here is very similar. We can get by, but they say shit that we don't say in America. And both of us say shit they don't say in England. But we could all talk to one another with this common language because the base root of our language came from the Germans and came from Latin and Norwegian mixed together, right? So we use words from all those languages together. We don't know that we do it, but we do. Okay, I'm sitting on a chair. Okay, this is the word that we use in English. I'm sitting on a chair. Okay, that same word for this thing that I call a chair in German and Norwegian and Swedish is stool. But we, as white people, as Aryans who speak English, we have a chair and a stool, right? A chair has back on it and a stool does not. But they just call both a stool. They just call it a stool. Okay. So, so yeah, right, Lloyd? Good day, mate. I am in Australia. So my wife, they say things over here. We say in America, we say McDonald's or Mickey D's, right? Over here, they say Macca's. It means Mickey D's. It means McDonald's, but they say a different word. We say I'm going to the gas station. They say I'm going to the service station, abbreviated servo, right? So they say I'm going to the servo to get petrol. We say I'm going to the service station to get gas, or I'm going to the gas station, right? So, but it means the same thing once you learn what the words mean, but they're evolving. Here's my point. Enough time in history, American English is going to be so different than England English that we won't know each other. We won't be able to talk to each other. Same thing with Australia and England. They're all, and Australia and America. Even though we have a common root language, it's like Sanskrit is to Yiddish or Hebrew and Pharisee and Aramaic and the like. They all came from Sanskrit. Swahili. They all came from Sanskrit, but now they're dialects of that, right? Etymology is fascinating. Yeah, I love that, right? Do you say, what is that? Aryans? Yeah, did you say Aryans? Well, I was saying white people from European. Usually I say European, but some people are like, I don't like being called that, right? So I was saying Aryan, and I know that that word to most people is a trigger because the Nazis used it to describe themselves because they thought they were the chosen race and they called themselves Aryan. But the truth is, European people that look like me, even though I am 5% native, you can't see it when you look at me, right? But the European, coming from that area is truly called Aryan because most people actually called that. Those people, they were either Keltoi, right? Which is where I get Kelto from, where you guys get Keltoi from, right? Keltoi, that's what the Greeks called those people who live up north who are not Greek. It was a catch-all phrase. Or you're a Frank, right? The Franks, because the people came from Francia, which is what we know as now as France. They were Frankians. So that's where you get the Frankenstein from, by the way. So literally you're either the Franks, so it depends on who you are. So the people who are from there would call themselves Norse, right? But when I say that, same thing. People get offended if I say Norse, right? Or if I say Aryan, or if I say white, or if I say whatever it is, depending on where you are and who you are, you're going to get offended because today, right now, it's a commonplace theme to hate people of this color. That's what people are trying to do around the world, is program people to hate people of this color, even though the people who are programming you are of this color, by the way, and they're the ones who think they own you, right? So they're the ones who think they own you, and they're the ones programming you to hate you, weirdly, because they want you to fight it back against other races because they're trying to get that happening because they need to get us all back to sleep. So they have to, at all costs. Hold on, I have a little kitten here that's getting into the wires over here, and she's climbing on my lap, and now she's getting excited because mom's home. Here's a little kitten named Orion. This is Orion. She's a little baby girl, and now she sees her mom, and she's freaking out and wanting to get away from
everybody.
me.
I just go home.
She just like cut me to death because you scared her. Yeah, she didn't realize who you were, and you scared her. That's not just mommy. You're okay, baby. Look at her; her heart's beating. You walked up on her, and she thought, yeah, now she's got me bleeding over here. So mom walked up, and she didn't see her, and she turned around, and she had this big thing of toilet paper. And you know how it comes in the plastic, right? And so she's carrying that, and the cat was like, oh! And she scratched me all up over here, trying to get away from me. And then she realized it was her mother, and she was like, oh my God. That was cute. Okay. So, and then little Lisa said, hi, Maeve. She said hi. She's in the other room. So literally, right, you have to, I know, yeah, little old Ryan. Yeah, look what she did to me, guys. She just cut my hand up right here, and she got my finger over here. Wait, where's the camera? I'm bleeding over here. Where is it? There it is. So yeah, she was freaking because I had her here. She didn't see mom walking up because the chair was blocking it. And so when I grabbed her, she turned when Brooke walked up, and she freaked out. Now she's over here trying to kiss me. Get down, baby. You need to go say hi to mama. Right? Get down, baby. We'll put you over here. Go see mama. She's still now. She's trying to climb back on me because she probably feels bad because she scraped me up just now. Okay, so no, right. Lord have mercy, right? So that she's a baby, and that's what happens where she don't want to run her over. Okay, so you guys have to realize that language is only a barrier because we don't realize that how much we evolve over time. If you go back, there's some videos. I don't have them posted anymore, but there are some videos that I'll have to find again where this guy does that. There's a couple of different guys, and they'll say the same phrase over and over, and they'll say to you, how far back does your understanding of English go? Say. They'll use different languages when they do it, right? So you can find it done in almost every language. So they'll start with modern English, and then they'll say it, and then they'll tell you. They'll replay this, they'll re-say this, the same phrase, and they'll point up and the time will change. So it'll say like 2026, and they'll say a phrase like one of the ones that the guy was saying was that one thing that the saying where you say about the sleeping dog jumping over the sleeping dog or something. And he says that, and then he'll go, 1932. He'll say the same thing. And then he'll go 1865. And he'll say the same thing again. And then he'll go 1820. And he'll say it again. And then he'll go 1790. And then he'll say it again. And then he'll go backwards to the 1500s or to the 1200s. And he says the same thing. Or they do it the other way around. And they start in like the year of like 1100. And then he'll say the same thing. And then he'll say, when is it that you start understanding what I'm saying? And then he'll do the same thing. He'll say, this is English from 1120. And then he'll say the words, and then he'll go forward to the 1200s, 1300s, 14, 15, 16, 17. And then all of a sudden you'll start understanding the words. You start realizing and it's really cool to watch them do that. So you can actually Google them. They're probably on TikTok too. I used to watch them and go, look at this. And I would show them the Brooke, and she was like, wow. Because if you're depending on how good you are at linguistics, you'll either catch it or you won't. And then you'll catch different words to where you realize the words had different meanings. Different words had the same meaning. Okay. And here's an example of that just with like, say, German, French, and English, right? We use the word force, like in Star Wars, may the force be with you. And in that context, the force is a magical power that is attached to everything, right? That is energy that we can transmute through our bodies. And that's the context of that. But what if I forced you to do something, right? So now I'm forcing you to do something. Okay. So as I'm forcing you to do something, now I'm using my will to make you do something, right? So the same word has a different meaning, even within language of English. But in that word in Germany, force means like armor. Do you see? It means like here's another, like we say tanks, armored tanks. They would say Panzer. That sounds like our word panther, Panzer. That means armor. Okay, so here's an example, Rothschild. The word Rothschild, that's a family name of these people that you know about. That word translates into English as red shield. Okay, a lot of people don't realize that. So when you look at language, you have to learn the etymology. And who was it that said that? Was that Lloyd that said that earlier? The etymology is great. You have to look at the etymology of and literally to the Latins, the word etymology means language, right? So when I'm using that term as the history of a language or the origin of a language, that word in a couple different languages mean language. How many linguistics? That's a Latin word that we get that means etymology, right? And etymology is actually a Latin word that comes from a Greek word. So you have to learn these things as a theologian for discovering and reading about spirituality and history and things like that. I need to know etymology because you need to look that stuff up. Okay. When you do, it changes the way you see things. And here's an example. Here's a secret to the universe. You guys want to have some etymology lesson on linguistics to show you the secret to the universe? I'll give you that right here. And then what was that you're saying here? I've learned a lot about particular in studies in the Bible. Greek translations are not simple. No, they're not. And that's why a lot of the stuff they took out of the Bible, because it was translated from Greek and they weren't sure if the translation was done the right way, because it depends on how you're translating it. So if you're reading the Bible, did it come from Sanskrit or Aramaic? Because they were speaking Aramaic in Jesus' time more than they were speaking. Yiddish wasn't around yet. So they were speaking Aramaic. So the Bible was written in Aramaic. And then who translated it? The Greeks or the Latins, right? Or the Romans. So they're two different languages. And so a lot of times people would translate it through the Greek and then try to translate the Greek into English. And then a lot of times they went from Aramaic to Coptic. Now you're getting etymology of my brain. Coptic, then Greek, then Latin, then English, or cut out the Greek or cut out the Latin, and then sometimes cut out the Coptic and go directly into Greek or Latin. And that changes the words. There's that phrase that we have, lost in translation. It comes from that. Okay. There's so many translations, it's insane. Correct. And that's the problem for us, is that we have to look at those things. And that's the linguistical issues. The etymology is how Zecharia Sitchin got off and said that the Anunnaki were aliens from another planet who came down here and created the human race. He took like 4 different storylines from the Mesopotamian region, from that area, and the Arcadians, who were next door neighbors, who were Greek, and they had a border. He took all of these ideas, these scriptures, these scrolls from that pantheon, and knew a little bit about it of each one of them. And he took that little bit that he knew and he put it together and created and invented a story that's just not true, because he's translating words wrong, Nephilim and the like, and the Nibiru. He's getting Nibiru from the Nephilim because of the translation, and he's looking at the Anu portion of the Anunnah, and because the Arcadians had a god called Anu, it was actually Anunnah, not Anu, and he saw that and he just threw out the Na part because he saw the Anunnah, and then he got the word ki and thought it meant comes, and the actual translation of the word Anunnaki, not Anunnaki, is actually of princely descent in third dimension. When referred to, here's etymology again, referred to an astral, non-third dimensional, it doesn't say aliens from outer space. It actually says archangel. It actually says those who were created by God to be godly. So then the people who were the Anunnaki were not aliens who came here in puddle jumpers. We're the Anunnaki. If you actually know the etymology of that religion, which people have translated it, because even in his day, there were people that actually knew the dictionary and had translated the dictionary of that language at the time from the cuneiform. And I have those links on my Facebook page currently because I've been going over this again and putting it out there for people, because I talk about this all the time. Okay, so there's a lot of modern translations. So anything that says Anunnaki were gods that came here and created the human race, all of that, its base root is Zecharia Sitchin in 1948, and the 6 books that he wrote that were wrong, and it looks like he did it wrong on purpose to make money. Okay, he made a mess of it. There's a link directly on my Facebook page today of Matthew LaCroix, who is one of the utmost knowledgeable humans on the face of the earth, who just wrote a book about it and is studying it and touring the world about it. He actually has found the oldest civilization in the history of the world, and they're digging in that site currently, and he has pictures about it, and he's talking about it and wrote a book about it. And he's also learned about the spiritual aspect of the earth, and he's physically going and taking pictures and showing in his book and on his podcast that he's been talking about the things that I'm telling you, things that I know. He's going around the world and going, look, here's what all these things mean in history. Here's what they actually mean in the spiritual practice of the time, not what people think today, or definitely not what Zecharia Sitchin said. And so it's a disaster right now. And you got all these people making money because they work for Disney, and they work for Disney, who owns the History Channel. And they've been propagating this since 2012, and it's been a lie. It was a lie when Zecharia Sitchin said it in 1948, and it was a lie in 2012 when Giorgio Tsoukalos said it. It was a bigger lie in 2015 when he said it again. They knew it. They knew the answer to it, and they chose not to go with that, and they're still doing it. Okay, and they're still propagating it, and it's not true. Actual scholars who translated those languages and those scrolls tell you that it's completely opposite of what they're telling you. And I know this. I'm a theologian. I'm not fluent in the Mesopotamian language. I'll tell you that right now. But I've read and research the people who are. And some of them are doing like Matthew LaCroix, who is also not fluent, but he has people that he's working with that are, and he gave the names, and I have the names of the people that you can look up. Okay, but the father of the person who actually translated the story of Gilgamesh. Let me pull up my stuff here, and I'll give you names. You can look these people up. The guy who translated the most ancient scroll first, before anybody else in the 1800s, was George Smith. You can look that up. He's the first one who broke the code to translate the story of Gilgamesh. Okay, everything else fell into place after that. So we're talking about 1880, not 1947 when Zachariah Sitchin was writing his books. So George Smith, Samuel Kramer with a C. Write these down if you guys are interested. And then Stephanie Dalley. Okay, those three people are the utmost authorities. And Mama Leah, look who's here. Welcome, right? Utmost authority on that language, those languages that came out of that cuneiform. And there's several that evolved from that, including, Sanskrit, Coptic, Yiddish, everything that we have now came from that Sanskrit and eventually evolved into the languages, because that all came out of that area of the Middle East, right? All of that's from the Iraq area. So if you're looking at, the Hebrews and where they were in their language, it's just, hop, skip, and a jump to Iraq. It's only a couple hundred miles away, right? I'm doing good, Mama Leah. How are you doing? It's fascinating because apparently that's where Adam and Eve was geographically. Yeah, well, and that story goes back past Adam and Eve. There's people that are talking about the story of Adama, but it goes back before that. It goes to Adapa. The story of Adapa is the oldest story on the history of the world that we currently have. And it's completely different than Adam and Eve. It has nothing to do with what you think it has to do with, right? So you guys should look that up. You should look up the story of Adapa. Adapa. It actually just means man. The story of Adam means the human existence. Adam and Eve was the telling of the human existence and the creation of the humans, not the creation of the very first two, and everybody else came from them, because you can't get a species with only two people. You have to have 7 distinct genomes, which is what we have on this earth. Weirdly, you have to have 7 distinct genomes, so you have to have a minimum of 7 people, but 14 people are easier and to create an entire species. So if you were going to create a species, you have to have 7 different genomes, and to make it propagate properly, you have to have 2 of each. That's why the story of grab the people 2 by 2. That story of Noah, which goes back, beyond that to a different story, that story is the same that's been told wrongly, translated. They came from 36,000 years ago. So they go back between 36 and 77,000 years ago. And we picked them up and got the hold of them about 7,000 years ago when they were translating them and putting them into the Hebrew Bible and a few other things. So they're not actually done right. So the story of Adam and Eve goes back to the story of Adapa and the whole thing of creating, if you're going to, but that's not what that story's about, by the way. Science says that you have to go 2 by 2 if you're going to be creating stuff. So eventually they had that in their storyline, so people think we were created by aliens, but we weren't. Is a historically documented true event? It depends on most all religions are metaphoric by nature, but some of them we can trace. Like Jesus, we have empirical evidence. So there's some people we have empirical evidence, like Shiva, right? So Shiva in India, they claim that was just stories that were made up, but yet there were 2 cities that Shiva lived in. And they said those never existed. That's like the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. They never existed, but they found the 2 cities now. They're underwater because of the flood. When the flood happened, the water table rose 500 feet. So most population of the planet now, we live on the coast of everywhere. If another flood happened right now and we went in 40 days and 40 nights of rain and the sea level rose 500 feet, I would be 450 feet above 480 feet below the surface of the water right now, where I'm currently sitting. I'm next to the beach. I'm at like 2 feet above sea level right now, maybe. Okay, so I would be almost 500 feet below water, this city that I'm living in. All of Sydney would be the same way. San Francisco would be gone. New York would be gone. London would be gone. Almost every city around the world, most of the cities in Egypt would be gone. Thebes and probably maybe not the Giza Plateau, because that is a plateau. It's a little bit higher up, but half of that place would be underwater. So if you lower the water table by 500 feet, everybody that was alive at the time was living on that coastline. So we'd have lost 90% of the land mass that we were living on in 40 days just from the flood. That was 12,000 years ago. Okay, so life has changed, and then there was another altercation 36,000 years ago, and most of the knowledge that we have as creation stories came from there. We know that now. So most of the stories that we have that are creation stories came from the societal structure that we're now starting to call the Atlanteans. Instead of just a place, we're now starting to change that verb or that adjective, however you want to look at that, the noun, whichever you want to look at that, as a entire species who lived here between 77,000 years ago and 36,000 years ago, that they died out during the Younger Dryas effect. Mama Leah saying hi to you. You see her there? So Brooke is sitting over here listening to me and typing and playing in the chat while she's talking. She's got a headache. She doesn't feel good. She just got off of work and she's off now on vacation for 3 weeks. Congratulations to Brooke, and she got a new job. She got promoted. She had her interview, and then when she gets back from vacation, she starts her new job. Congratulations, Brooke. Woo-hoo. I love my wife. So she's so good, so happy. So vacation and a better job that she's doing, because now she's not like running around with dealing with the public so much. She's going to be in an office doing office work, working for the same company, just upstairs now, right? So I'm assuming it's upstairs. Usually all this stuff happens upstairs, right? So right, headache. It's going around. It's probably that thing again, right? It's probably more of the viruses. She thinks it's a migraine though. Right. So my spirit really hears this, right? So you have to realize, let's get back on track on spirituality, right? You have to realize that if you read the scriptures, some of them are true tales that we can actually see these people actually lived. Most of them were not. Like when you go to the story of Gilgamesh, whether that person was an actual human who lived or not, it doesn't really matter. Even as a minister, when people say to me and they ask me, did Jesus actually live? Right? Thank you for that, Casey, or Cassie. I don't know how you say your name. I don't want to. Is it Casey? Yeah, right. So, yeah, right, Casey, right? Thank you. She's over here. That's Casey. Hi. Sorry. So, literally, what you have to do is you have to realize that I say when they ask me that about Jesus, it's not actually important. There is empirical evidence. Let me start with that shows Jesus was a real person. But even without that knowledge, the knowledge of the message that Jesus was here to teach is actually more important than whether or not Jesus was an actual human. Okay. But to believe that he came down in human form solidifies that more. That's why the stories are that way. Thor did the same thing. So does that make Thor a real person? People that are Christian will say that's not real. Well, it's the exact same story. It's identical. The only difference is his name is Thunder instead of Jesus, and you should look up the etymology of Jesus and see what Jesus is, right? And here's some more secrets to the universe, okay? Thank you for sharing that. Mama Leah's sharing it out. Thank you for sharing that out. Get some people in here. I'm gonna eat a cookie here. I apologize for eating on camera, but after I channel for a while and I've been on here now for almost 3 hours, my blood sugar level gets a little bit low, so I'm gonna have a cookie that's been sitting here for 3 hours waiting for me. All right. Right, Lloyd? Yeah, I mean, you gotta. I always hated, Lloyd, you're a Catholic, you understand this. I always hated it when you look back in scriptures from any religion. You get the prophets, and it always seems like they're always talking in riddles. I get that they're talking in parables, like Jesus was doing. Parables are one thing, because those are being done on purpose because different people learn different ways. I talk in parables too. Okay. You have to do that so that you can reach everyone. It's okay. But it always seemed like they were hiding something. They never were descriptive enough. I get it, because the parts that were descriptive were taken out. When you look, that's what you find out, right? Hold on, I'm going to eat another piece of my cookie here. Well, and see, that's the whole point. I cannot. I take the philosophical thought from Socrates. I can't make anybody believe anything. The only thing I can hope to do is to get you to start thinking for yourself. Okay. So I say these things, and if you don't agree with them, I always say to people, don't believe me. Go down that rabbit hole yourself. Learn. Because when you do, you're going to unlock knowledge. And when you unlock the knowledge, you're then going to realize that enlightenment, true enlightenment, is universal. It's not something that you think. When you think you know something, and there goes back to Socrates again, when the more you know, the more you should realize you know nothing. So Socrates said that, the more I know that I know nothing. Okay, so anybody who thinks they know everything, they're lying to themselves and they're listening to their ego too much. Anybody that says they're the know-it-all on everything, they're lying to themselves and their ego. Okay, so you'll never hear me claim that I know everything. You'll never hear that. Do I know more than most people? Well, I'm awake. I have access to the knowledge that you too can have access to. So I don't know more than anyone else can know. I know only that which you can unlock. And I know that. Okay, so true universal enlightenment, or true enlightenment, is universal. You actually gain knowledge from this place when you wake up. And it's the same knowledge that everyone gains. That's why at a certain level you hear people talking like this. There's not so many that talk like this, though, because there's some people that are very awake that are not this awake. And it's not their fault. I came in completely unveiled to do what I'm doing. I've been on this earth for a very, very, very long time. Okay. Not in this body. In this body, I've been in this body for 58 years. But prior to this, I've been in, hundreds of different bodies. Just in the last 12,000 years, I've been in like 60. Okay. I've been more before that. Because I've been here for a very long time doing this. But this is the first time that I've been able to speak out loud like this and give you this much information. Even with people who I was in the past, I couldn't say things like this. Okay? I'm going to eat another cookie here because I need some more blood sugar here. So I have cookies, baby, and I have coffee and stuff. Are you okay? So I go on other people's lives and they'll be talking, and then they talk to me like either afterwards or on the live, and they'll go, okay, Leo's more awake than I am. I'm not doing that because I'm trying to be cool. I'm not doing that because I have an ego, and I don't tell people I'm more awake than you. I never say that. I just tell you what I know. And I tell you what you can know. And I tell you what you can unlock. Everything that I know, you can unlock. I tell you truly. I'm not here to say something that I have some knowledge that you can't have or that you don't have. I have a knowledge that every single human being on this earth can unlock and will at some point in your life, and will unlock at some point. Ask me your spiritual questions. That's what I'm here to do. I'm just trying to make sure that I keep my blood sugar up, because channeling my higher self like this takes a toll and burns up some blood sugar and water. That's why I have drinks over here. I have water that if I show you, TikTok usually says that it's alcohol because it's vitamin water. I know, Lloyd, you're very close. I would say you're probably 3/4 or more unveiled, bro. Otherwise, you'd have thought I was cuckoo. You just disagree with some things that I'm talking about. You don't think I'm crazy, which means you're awake. you just haven't gotten out of your way yet and said, I'm awake. Once you start saying I am awake, you're going to be just fine. Right? Yeah, right. Christian apologist. I won't do that. I was at one point, I won't do that. I don't mansplain. I don't, when people want me to do that, I tell them, make up your own mind, go your own way, man. Swipe up if you don't like me. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, you're there, brother. You're there. You just got to, that's one of the things that you're already doing, the hermit thing, right? I mean, you're already kind of doing that. So you're into that place already. Then there's that spot where you just got to get out of your own way and realize I am. That's that other part. I think, therefore I am, right? Then you move into the I am, therefore I think. Okay. So to be completely awake, you have to get out of your way and stop wondering when you're going to wake up, how you're going to wake up, and why you haven't woke up. I need access. Who am I? Once you say, I am, just like God said that to Moses on the mountain, who shall I say sent me? I am that I am. Tell them I am sent you. Adonai, right? So I am. Once you start realizing that I am, like the way that the God who has no name, I am, Adonai said, once you realize that self of you, that beingness, I am that I am, once you get into that and you stop associating with a name or you still will have a name because people will say, well, what am I supposed to call you? And so you don't want to say I am that I am because you're not yet. So eventually when you get all the way back there, which is a long, long time from now, when you get all the way back to that, you will become. And when you become one with the Creator again, then you will be able to say, I am that I am. Yeah, and again, and agreed, right? I love when somebody says something that I can find and go, wow, it changed my thought, and go, okay, how did I not realize that? That's the way it is when you wake up. When you wake up, you go, we tell the story. The Sufi was trying to wake up, and he was buying every book that he could find and reading everything that he could find, talking to everybody who was all wise, wanting to wake up. I'm going to wake up, and had this whole library full of all this stuff. And one day he woke up and realized that he was awake. First thing he did was took all those books from his library and threw them on the front lawn and lit them on fire. Okay. Because that's where you see that scene in the Star Wars in not the Force Awakens, but the one after that, where you see Yoda burning the books that Luke is protecting, because Luke is staying there and stuck in that place, have to protect these books because they're the ancient books. And, and Yoda burns them. And he's like, there's nothing in there that you don't already know. There's nothing in there that girl doesn't already know. Those were for a long, long time ago for people who needed them. It's the same thing, right? It's the same thing with the spirituality and learning these religions. Those are stories that were written for people a long time ago. They were parables for people a long time ago. We're supposed to move beyond that. Like the creation stories that tell us that there's this God that was in the way, a giant God that we unalived, but they're not unalived. They're actually just sleeping. But we took their head and created the dome of the sky, where people get the idea that the earth is flat. So that's where do they get that idea from? Because with the dome of the sky that everybody talked about for thousands of years. Well, that dome of the sky came out of a God that was unalived, and we took the skull of that God and we're living inside of it. That's the story. And why is that the story? We're living inside of it, and the mountains are the teeth, and the water is the blood of this giant who's not unalived, but sleeping. So the story is supposed to be there to teach you you're in the mind of the sleeping God. We exist in the mind of the God. We are in the mind of God. That's what that story was supposed to be telling. But they took away that part that we were in the mind of a sleeping God and that we were living in a skull of a sleeping God. And then they said, no, that's just, there's no giants, there's none of that. And God is somewhere out there, but the earth is still flat. So they had this idea that there was a dome there and that the earth was flat because we were living in the mind of a sleeping God. That's where that all came from. That evolved from 38,000 years ago down to 2,000 years ago. And then people started realizing the earth wasn't flat. And here we are 2,000 years later. And now we have one group of people of a certain age group, millennials, who believe that the earth is flat. They're the only ones who do. Other people are going, yeah, I guess maybe it's possible. Because if you distrust the powers that should not be, then you start going, well, if we didn't go to the moon, they're probably lying about everything else. The earth is probably flat. It's not. It's not. Those stories were told 40,000 years ago to children. Okay? We have a completely different genome with completely different education, with completely different ideology now. And we're trying to base it in the earth has a dome. So therefore, where'd you get the idea that the dome? Because they talked about it in history. Where did they get the idea of the dome? They got the idea of the dome because they killed a god and built the world in its skull. Okay? So the dome of the sky was the inside of the skull of the god that you're in. Well, that's just nonsense. Ergo, the earth isn't flat and you're not inside of the dome. The concept of the dome comes from being in a sleeping dead God's head. That's where that story comes from. Everybody knew that the earth was, no, they didn't. 4,000 years ago, they realized that it was round. And then it was round forever until like 10 years ago. Okay? Then everybody started, maybe 15 years ago, then everybody started saying that it was flat again. Okay? Everybody knew it. And they're like, no, everybody said the earth was, no, they didn't. 5,000 years ago, when Socrates was alive, yeah, he became unalived because he said, I don't think the earth is flat, it's round. Not too long after that, less than 150 years later, the Greeks adopted the idea that the earth was in fact round. And they knew it. They did the mathematical equations to figure it out and proved it. Okay? And people are like, it just doesn't happen. It actually does if you actually get off your butt and actually do it. Line of sight doesn't work. It does work, and they've proved it, and people will still deny it. Okay? If you do the actual math and you go actual distances and you have somebody, because you can spontaneously do this now with a phone where I can communicate with you. Okay? And if you show when the sun goes down here and when the sun goes down over there and when the sun comes up here and when the sun comes up over there, you can actually show that the sun comes up for you before it comes up for somebody else. Okay? Oh, that's because it's like a flashlight. Flashlight. That old entire concept was created about 100 years ago. 78 years ago was a flashlight was created. Okay, maybe 80 years ago. Okay, so your idea of a flashlight was just invented. What do you think they called it before that? A torch in the sky? I mean, come on. Right? There's somebody holding a torch up inside the sky. The whole concept came out of that. That was a metaphor to teach people that you are actually inside the mind of the creator. Now there's 5D thinking. Let's go to 5D thinking. Okay. Does your book cover all of what you believe? No, not most of it. The book does, because it covers more of what I've been talking about. The book is about the fact that evil people got control of the knowledge here that I'm telling you, and they're distracting you away from all of this and controlling what you can and can't learn, and all the things that I'm telling you about all of these religions. It's there, including the Christ oil. It's in my book. I didn't invent the Christ oil. That was told by every single religion on the face of the earth forever, still there, still being told about it. The story of Jesus is the story of the Christ oil within. Jesus was teaching you that. Story of Thor is the same. Story of Marduk is the same. The story of Moses is the same. Story of Shiva is the same. The story of Osiris is the same. All of those stories are the exact same story. It's the hero story. Okay? You could read Joseph Campbell's A Hero with 1,000 Faces book. It's about this thick. He taught mythology in the Americas before he passed. He was in the United States teaching it like MIT or something. Don't quote me on that. But he talks about this hero journey that all of us go on. He was showing you the same things, and he quotes Jung and all this stuff. He was teaching the same thing. I've never read his book, but I've heard him speak. He was teaching the same thing, that there's a way to get out of here. There's a way that you're supposed to live life, and it happens to you no matter what you do. You're going to go on that journey, and this is what I've been talking about, and it's what's in my book. You're going to go on this journey no matter what you do, whether you believe in God or not. You're going to go on the same journey. That's what he talks about in his book, which I haven't read. I'm going to have to buy it, but it's thick. It's like this. But if you've read it and you learn this stuff about mythology, mythology was also metaphor. The story of Achilles and Troy. Some of that happened in real life, but it turned into a myth, right? So people didn't believe that Troy existed till we found it. So they don't believe that anything exists until we physically find it, because some people don't believe something is real until they can touch it, right? And that's why faith, that's why religion or a God you can't see drives people who are 3D crazy, okay? So spirituality grows from there, yeah. So what happens is you, with your life, will get tired of living here, even if you're living in the flesh, even if you're living 3D and you don't believe in any religion, you don't believe in any of that, anarchist, you don't have to believe in anything. You're going to live here long enough to where you're going to start pondering something different. You will do that no matter what. You'll go on that hero journey of self-reflection. That's what Carl Jung was showing you. You don't need a God to do it. You're going to do it no matter what. It's part of what you're supposed to do in evolution. How you get to that level of awareness doesn't have to be spiritual or religious at all. Does not have to be. This is why when somebody said, what should I do in my life? Whatever the fuck you want is what you're supposed to do. Don't let anybody tell you there's a certain way you're supposed to do it, right? Mortal conflict. Yeah, I mean, in a way, that's what it is, right? I have a question. Is it true the deep sea is space? No. But in a way, it is like that. The air that you breathe is one molecule away from the water that you drink. Okay? So it is like space because it is detrimental to a human if we're not wearing a suit. Okay? We have to wear a suit to go down there because the pressure of the water will crush us and we'll become unalive. If you go into space, it's the opposite. It'll pull you apart because there's not enough pressure for you to stay together, and your own heartbeat will explode you because your heartbeat, you have blood pressure. The blood pressure in your body is pushing out and resisting the pressure that is being pulled on you by gravity. If you go inside of water, the water is dense and it pushes on you more. So when you're in water, your body has to push out to augment the amount of pressure that's being pushed against you. The further you go down in the ocean, the more dense that water is, and it'll crush you. When you go into space, it's the opposite. There is no density in space for physicality, and your heart beating will explode your body and you'll become unalive in space. So space is the void that is what you hear as the ether, or they used to call it Tiamat in the ancient times. Tiamat was the primordial ooze, the force, the Yggdrasil, the tree of life, the nothingness that is void, that is nothing. That is what space is, and there is no pressure there. So there's no gravity there, so there's no pressure there. So your body will pop itself there like a balloon that's overinflated because you don't have pressure pushing back against your body. Do we have any options on birthmarks, freckles? Any opinions? Do I have? I have freckles, right? So birthmarks, sometimes people have found when they do life regression that some birthmarks have to do with what happened to you in a past life. Some people have a birthmark that coincides with how they passed in a past life, a knife or a bullet or something like that. Sometimes birthmarks are done on certain places of your body to remind you of something that you were programming into yourself so that you wake up, right? So looking into birthmarks and freckles and designs of freckles, for those of you who are not like me, because I'm all freckle eclectic, I have freckles everywhere. I could spend my entire life looking at my freckles and it wouldn't mean anything to me other than my DNA, which was I chose this DNA on purpose to help me wake up. So everything about you, whatever race you are, the design of you is not random. Most people want you to believe that in 3D, that your parents just got together and you're just a random thing. It's just not. So you said I'm black and I'm covered in freckles. But no one else in my family has them. Well, you have DNA that's recessive in there probably somewhere that gave you those freckles, right? And those are in all races, so don't feel bad about that. It's not like don't let somebody tell you, well, you must be white because you have freckles. No, African people have freckles as well. For instance, look at what's his name? I can't think of his name right now. The guy who played God. What is his name? Morgan Freeman. He has freckles on his face. Right, those are people say, "Oh, those are age spots." They say it about all freckles. He's got freckles, and he's dark. Okay, so it's in every race. It's just a pigmentation part of your melanin in your body that you develop on the skin in a different place. I have every color on me, right? I mean, it doesn't take me long to turn, and I have every color, including the deepest and darkest African black, somewhere on my body. I'm just not covered completely, where some people are just all one color. I'm not. I'm every color, right? So can shapeshifters change scars and et cetera as they change? It depends on the shapeshifter, right? Depends on what race you're talking about or what level you're talking about with shapeshifters. But if you time shift, you can get a thing like that happen. I have a scar. I'm looking on the wrong place. I have a scar on my right arm, on my left arm over here from a knife fight that's over here on this side of my body that was here, that I got here. And now it's over here. So there was a timeline shift that happened, and I didn't notice it until one day I looked at my arm and went, well, that's weird. Where'd that scar go? I'm like, I guess, over time, scars fade. I didn't think anything about it. A couple of days later, I looked at my left arm and went, what is that scar doing over here? That scar's on this arm. This is a knife fight from 30 years ago that happened over on this arm. So for you as an individual, you could have scars or freckles that move because you may have shifted from one reality to another. But shapeshifters can, if they're shape-shifting, they can move. I mean, if they're truly a shapeshifter, they can change their looks, so they could change their complexion as well, right? Will you have seen the phenomenon 5 holy wounds? You're talking about the stigmata, right? I have not witnessed that in real life, but I've seen stuff that's similar to it. I have some of the signs of stigmata that I don't talk about that are not the wounds in the hands or the feet. Okay, I have some signs of that. My wife knows about that, right? I have some of the signs of stigmata myself. So stigmata is what you're talking about, and those some people have them. There's a movie called Stigmata that you should watch, where a woman had the signs where she was getting the blood here and here. Some people get it in their eyes, like Mary. Both Marys and the statues have done, and some people get wounds like Jesus had. And it's usually people who are devout that are really truly like chosen to, in some way, do that stuff, right? Do you, God, can make miracles happen in present times? Do I believe, Lloyd? Yes. Miracles happen all the time. We're a miracle just being alive. I'm a miracle that I'm alive. Just if you know anything about my life, you can ask my wife. It is a wonder. It is a God's will that I am sitting here, not standing here. I'm sitting here talking to you right now because I should not have made it this far in this life alone. So miracles happen. People don't want to believe in them. Look at Jesus. There's a whole entire, group of people on the earth who claim he's not even real, right? So miracles happen, but you have to remember that your focus determines your reality. We do not see reality for the way it truly is. We see reality through the lens of our experience, the way we are. Since I was young, I felt and seen the presence of angels and spirits. Is that a gift? Yes. Everyone can ascend to that level to be able to see those things, but it takes a special person to believe that and to not let someone tell you that it was not real what you're seeing, right? So somewhere in your life, you were probably lucky and had someone in your life who didn't discourage you, or you were steadfast enough to go, okay, Grandma, you're right, I'm not seeing that, but inside you were like, yeah, I know I am, because it's normal to be able to do that. I'm a medium. I talk to out-of-body spirits all the time. Okay, so you either had somebody help you, or you just kind of went, okay, sure, you're right, and then you steadfastly stayed in your mind. You didn't let them know that you were still doing it, and that's good for you that you didn't let them stop you, because that's one of the things that locks us into 3D here, is that our parents, teachers, and friends and family laugh at you when you tell them. When I was a boy and I talked to my father, he was like, the first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club. I mean, that saying wasn't around then, but it's more of a household phrase now. But he literally said, you cannot talk like this in front of other people. You cannot, don't do this at school. Don't do this with your friends. Maybe not even your brothers and sisters, okay? You cannot speak like this because they will take you from me. And when I was 11, they tried to do that, basically. They came and tested me at the school and offered me a job to go into the Air Force and the military at 11 years of age. And I said, no, they really didn't like that. But yes, it is a gift, right? As Tooze says, gift, same thing, right? Yeah. I think that my mother knew from young that I was observant. She protested me and think that from what I would, I'm not sure of the rest of that, but they try to stop you. Some people try to stop you. That's just a friend. That's in your imagination. It's not real. Stop talking to that. You're old enough now. You got to not do that, because they don't believe in it. They've locked into 3D, so they don't know it. That's what Jesus said on the cross, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Right? Okay, that's fine. No, that's all right, baby. So Brooke was telling me that she ordered dinner. She's like, I ordered something. She's not feeling good, so she ordered some soup and she ordered food. So neither of us are cooking today. I'm all right with that. Although, in truth, I cook like one day out of like 100. Right. Brooke does most of the cooking. I cooked last night, but that's like rare. I think the last time I cooked was probably 3 months ago, 4 months ago. So Brooke usually does most of the cooking. I was taking care of my mother before I got here, and I was cooking every day. And then before that, with my ex-wife, when I was with her, I was cooking all the time. And so I was cooking like every day, all the time. So Brooke's being very nice in the last year and a half to 20 years that we've been together. I just don't get off my lazy butt. I'm usually on here talking, and so I'm usually still talking when she gets home. So it ends up turning out that she does the cooking. So I'm gonna have to start setting an alarm and like policing myself and saying that's enough. I gotta go cook dinner. I would have done that with my mother, so I just got to start doing that again, right? So so she ordered some food. So when the food gets here, just so you guys know, in about 20 minutes, I'm gonna have to go, right? So quick, if you got questions, people, throw them at me now. I just wanted to say that you're lovely energy. Thank you. That's what I'm here to do, right? The fact that you acknowledge as well. I know some people will like, oh my God, you're actually talking to me. This is what I'm here to do. I want to interact with you guys. I want to answer your questions, right? I want to talk to you guys and see that. Yeah, please look into the miracles. That's what I took a picture of earlier, Lloyd. I will be looking into that stuff for sure, right? Let me see what else you guys have to say here, right? Me tell you guys is rising guy not believe me. I'm not sure what you're saying there, buddy. You're gonna have to. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what you're saying there, buddy. You're gonna have to repeat that for me. Yeah, and we are Reiki master teachers, right? So yeah, you can see that right there. We're
No, I said you and myself are Reiki.
Reikiing her to make sure. Yeah, trying to get her some good energy, right? Oh yeah, no, right. So you have seen the constellation prediction of Christ returning. Well, I've heard of a few things. First, I want to rain on your parade, let you know that Christ is not returning. He never said he was coming back. That's a lie that was created by the Romans in 329 AD when they created the Christian religion. Then they teach you the book of Romans, and they're telling you just sit down here and wait. Jesus said he's coming back. He never said that anywhere in the Bible. However, the Christ consciousness is returning to the earth, and by 2027, more people around the earth will know about it and be practicing it. And that's why I wrote this book right here about that. Okay. What are your thoughts on prophetic dreams? Absolutely 100%. I tell everyone we teach this. You can see I teach dream walking. You can see it over there in the white, dream walking, astral projecting. Write down your dreams. Anything that comes into your dreams, you should always write them down, figure them out in some way, or have somebody help you translate it. Don't use AI. AI is lying to you. AI is going to give you whatever the consensus is on the top 10 items top 10 sites they look up. So AI is going to be just giving you information that a bunch of people said, not without any proof of what they said, just some shit they said, right? So prophetic dreams are good if you are dreaming about things and then they come to pass later on. Write them down. If you can warn people and help them, try it. But if it comes to somebody, government or something big, don't try to get involved. There were people that I was working with that tried to warn about 9/11 and they got arrested. And now we know that 9/11, they planned it and did it. So they weren't going to let anybody stop them. They wanted to know how they knew about it. And so a lot of people got in trouble because they were trying to help people. People that are locked in 3D will never listen to you anyways. But you'll find that if you are prophetic and you start getting a reputation, you'll find that police departments around the world will contact you without other people knowing about it and have you help them solve crimes. I've had that happen a lot. I just haven't done it lately, but I used to do it all the time. Once people realize that we have that ability, then they'll start contacting you and they'll go, what do you know about this? What do you think about that? Right. So you got to kind of take everything with a grain of salt. You're talking to people, can you help them? You'll know if you can, because if you can't make them believe it, they're not going to believe it. It's because they're not supposed to. It's just like when I'm talking to you guys, I can only tell all of you what the collective consciousness of the earth is ready to hear. One-on-one, I could tell each one of you far more about yourself than I can the collective. Okay. So these words that I'm speaking to you now, even the information I'm giving to you now, I wouldn't be able to say this out loud 20 years ago because the population of the earth wasn't ready for someone like me to speak like this. Okay. So the same thing goes for psychic abilities. You'll know because the universe will stop you. When you're not able to say something, they'll talk to you, right? So I believe that Jesus will return. Yeah, he's going to return because he's going to return within you. because he never said he was going to. And I always tell people, tell me where he said it in the Bible. Wait here, I'll be back, because he didn't. They always use that part in John and in Matthew when they were asking about the kingdom of heaven returning. And he says, I tell you truly that my Father says that he will come as a thief in the night. That doesn't mean, he didn't say me, I'm going to return. He was saying our Father, my Father, not me. Anyways, to start with, he never said, wait here, I'm going to come back. That never happened. There's no place in the Bible where Jesus said, hold on, wait here, I'll be back. And people always quote John. And I'm like, that's a conversation that John was having when they were talking about the Enlightenment. And he was asking about his enlightenment, our enlightenment. When will we truly be enlightened? I tell you truly, my Father will come in like as a thief in the night. You will be enlightened when it's your time to be enlightened. Okay. When you see how Jesus actually talked, he was promoting consciousness. Yes, he was. He was talking the way I'm talking. I know this. Okay. He was talking the way I'm talking to you right now, teaching you the same thing, the balance between masculine and feminine, the veneration of the feminine and the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine, and the Christ oil within you on how to get out of here. That's why I wrote the book about it. I'm telling you the same things. This is exactly what, the union of self. Okay. Kundalini, Kunda buffer. See, Kundalini in and of itself is masculine. It's part of the religion that they took out from that religion to not let you know about the feminine. The sacred feminine in that religion is Kunda buffer. You can look that up. Kundalini is yellow, orange, and red fire. Kunda buffer is the blue, purple, and violet. That's the upper three chakras. Lower three chakras are yellow, orange, and red. Upper three chakras are indigo, purple, and violet, or violet and then white. Okay, so the Kunda buffer, the feminine energy, is spiritual. That's the upper realm energy. So if you look at the Kundalini and the Kunda buffer, there's two energies there. That's the Celtic knotwork. There's two energies, masculine and feminine. They go opposite ways around the spine as they go up. So the feminine that's the Merkaba. That's the two energies. The masculine spins one way, the feminine spins the other way. Okay. So they don't want you to know about the Kunda buffer, right? The feminine energy. They just want you to hear the word Kundalini and use that catch-all phrase because it's masculine. So you should learn that stuff. Kunda buffer, Kundalini. Who said that? Oh, my wife did. Right. So even in those, religions or spiritual practice, there is some corruption to where they're not teaching you, but it's still there. You can look up the Kunda buffer. You can look that up. It's a thing. It's feminine. But they use the word Kundalini as a catch-all, and it's just masculine. And so people think Kundalini. There's two Kundalini fires. Well, what's the other Kundalini fire? What's the Kunda? Kundalini, Kunda buffer. Kunda means fire or energy. So Kundalini is masculine. Buffer is feminine. You need to look that up. So there's always a masculine and a feminine to every spiritual practice, unless they've evolved it into a male-dominated, masculine, warlike culture, which is what they've done to all the religions that are currently on the earth. They try to warp it. They're trying to do it with the Viking religion as well, trying to make Thor and Odin the only people you hear about.
Or they go the other
right?
extreme, is they make it all feminine and take the masculine away.
Yeah, do you hear what Brooke's saying? Or they go the opposite and they go all feminine and they take the masculine away. Right? They don't want to give you this balance. So the Druid and the Wiccan religion, Wiccan was in the past was all women, and the Druid religion was all men, and they were there learning and teaching the exact same things, but the duality, the Druid were all men and the Wiccans were all women, right? And they were dual aspects of the other way around, left and right, masculine, feminine. And eventually they were going to merge, and that was the plan thousands of years ago, was to bring about the emergence of masculine and feminine together. And they have done that to where you have clergy that are both men and women, but they still haven't realized that they're supposed to, become one. And then they get Christianized. One of the things that drove me crazy as a Merlin, because I have that title since I was 19, when I was in my 20s, looking at the Wiccan religion and seeing how they're becoming Christianized. Right. And I was like, how are you all of a sudden singing "Now We Gather at the River"? Right. But you're singing "Now We Gather around the bonfire." You're like, "Now we gather at the fire." And it's the hymn from the Christians that came from the Hebrew. And you guys have adopted that. And they're like, well, we're trying to integrate people. I'm like, that's what the Catholic religion did. And that's how we have Christmas in December. Okay, and we have that from that, literally. Yeah, literally, right? So, I mean, literally they did that. Yeah, we even in Africa practice a lot of the goddess have been lost over time. Literally, they take it out. And they do that when it's a warlike culture. Look when your African culture turned warlike, right? You have Shaka Zulu, right? The Shaka, is that his name? Shaka, right? The Zulu, he turned that and he started murdering people. So he turned that into a warlike culture that went on for a long time, for hundreds of years, of destroy your enemy completely and utterly, run across the field and stick them instead of doing the dance, right? Because it was peaceful before that, and it was, people had fun with warfare. And then he went, why are we not just running over there? Because he was self-serving. And then he took control of all of that, and he changed things. So they do that. Then the West shows up, and the first thing they do is as soon as someone self-serving shows up, they immediately have to keep control over you. The modus operandi of the people who control this place, right? Easter about Jesus's crucifixion. What does Easter have to do with that? Well, it has a lot to do with it, only because the pagans that they were trying to over in Europe that they were trying to win over to Christianity, their God was born, resurrected on that day. Okay, so their God died in the winter time, and that was where you had the winter and the evergreen tree stayed green, all other trees died. That was the death of the god, and the goddess was then pregnant, and she gave birth to the god in springtime, and he was born again and brought life into the world. So Jesus had to be unalived and had to resurrect at the same time. So Easter all of a sudden happened in springtime in the north. Okay, that was an evolution. Same thing with the story of Jesus being born on December 25th. There is no historical fact showing that. If you look at the historical records in the Roman Catholic Church, the Immaculate Conception was the same time as his mom. His mother was an Immaculate Conception. She was between the 11th of December and the 17th. So was Jesus. Okay? So Jesus was, if a church that started it said Jesus' conception was in December. 9 months later is September, not December. So he was either born in 2 weeks or he was born in a year and 4 months. And they never said he was late. They didn't say that he was born late. Okay, and then people go, well, when he was born, it was winter time. And no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. People were hanging out. They were able to see the stars. It was warm outside. He was born in a manger, and there was no snow, and nobody was freezing, and there was no rain. Okay? So he actually was born in September, somewhere in the first week of September, the 7th through the 11th of September. If you go from the 11th to the 17th of December and you count 9 months, and then you count 9 months to the day, it's somewhere between the 7th and the 11th of September that Jesus was born. He was not born in December. But Santa Claus in that story was in December, and the story of the god Pan and the other gods, Kronos, Cernunnos, Hern, those gods died in the wintertime because it was cold and snowy up in the north, and then came back in the springtime. So their god was reborn in the springtime, so Jesus had to be reborn then, and they had a story of the Christ oil happening in December, so therefore Jesus had to be born there, and the church just moved the shit around. Look it up. It's happened in real life. Okay? We have no exact date recording of the birthday, correct? We don't. We have like sun signs, and they talk about the moon was in this zodiac and the star was in the sky here, and we can kind of get an idea of when Herod was mad and was worried that the Savior would then come and unalive him or free the slaves and all of that. But it's still not December 25th. That was done because there was already a in place god and goddess up there that they were trying to convince that the god of their religion was the same god, and therefore you guys can easily just become a Christian. And that's how that evolved. Okay. And Easter is not even on Sunday. The resurrection is not even on Sunday. I talked about this with theologians, right? And people try to get their way through this. Okay. So Passover was Thursday. That was when the Last Supper was happening. After the Last Supper was when Jesus got arrested. Got arrested by the Sanhedrin. He was in front of the Sanhedrin all night, Thursday night into Friday, which is Good Friday. Okay. And he was beaten and all of that. They take him before Herod. They go back. They take him before Herod. They go back. The third time they take him before Herod. Herod takes him out and beats him the second time and brings him back. All of this happens by the time they put him on the cross and he becomes unalived. It's 3 p.m. in the evening, in the afternoon, on Friday. Okay. So they say he was unalived, and on the third day he rose. And people start loving. They do this. They go, well, you have to remember that back then. I know exactly back then. The sundown to sundown was a day, not sun up or midnight like now. Okay, so Thursday ended at sundown. After the Last Supper, it became Friday. Okay, so he still wasn't unalived until the last 3 hours of Friday. You don't count Friday as one whole day. It says in Scripture that he was unalived, and on the third day he rose. Not the third day after Last Supper, not on the third day after he was captured, the third day after his unaliving, he resurrected. Okay? And if you counted, and if you count the day by nighttime to nighttime to nighttime to nighttime, it's still 24 hours. It's 24 hours in a day. Okay, so if he died at 3 p.m. on Friday, that's when he's unalived. 3 p.m., 3:30. Okay? They had to get him in the ground before 6 p.m. because they had to do it before the day was ended, because the next day was the Sabbath, which was Saturday. Okay, so Saturday starts at 6 p.m., so they only have 3 hours, 2.5 hours to get him into the thing. Saturday's the Sabbath, so nobody can go and clean the body. Then they claim that they came in there on Sunday. Okay, how many hours is that? That's not even 48 hours. Okay, 48 hours would be 3 p.m. to 3 p.m. on Saturday is one day, 24 hours. To 3 p.m. on Sunday is 24 hours, 48 hours. They said that he rose on the third day. Okay, so the third day would be Monday, not Sunday. Monday. So even if it's not 72 hours, okay, because it's not, it's 60 hours. It's the Christ oil that's being taught everywhere. It's 60 hours, not 24-hour cycles. But there were 24 hours in a day back even then. The days weren't different. Oh, no, they didn't count them. It doesn't matter. It was 24 hours. It was a day is a day is a day is a day, okay? Sundown to sundown, or, sundown starts the day. Next day ends, next day begins, sundown. Doesn't matter if you move it to midnight or you move it to there. It's still the same amount of time. Time is constant. Okay, you can't just describe that away. People try to explain that away. Easter is not Sunday. That was put there for the church because that was a day off for the slaves all throughout time. Monday, you needed to go back to work. So they couldn't have you actually have the Sabbath on the Sunday for the resurrection, even though that's when it actually happened. It was a Monday, not Sunday, because it's 2.5 days for the Christ oil. So they're deceiving you because the church wants this day off. The only day off that people had back then was Sunday. They didn't have 2 days off. It was actually Saturday in the Hebrew there. So Sunday was the first day of going back to work. You can't have the day of resurrection happen on the next day because people are going to take Saturday. They're going to want Sunday and Monday off. Okay? So you can't do that. So the church moved everything to Sunday when they started giving people 2 days off, Saturday and Sunday. So church was on Sunday. They're not going to give you Monday off. Now you're going to have Saturday, Sunday, and Monday off? No, they just changed it and said this is when he was resurrected. Because it was 60 hours. Because that's the Christ oil and the length of the Christ oil in every single religion from the dawn of time, even past then into now. So on the third day he rose. So he was deceased on the first day. That's Friday. Saturday, Sunday, that's how they're trying to say it. They're trying to say, well, he died on Friday. So therefore, Saturday was day 2. No, that's 24 hours of being unalived. You don't count the whole day. That's like me. If I drop dead at 11:59:59 with 59 nanoseconds, then you don't go, well, that's day 1. If you're born at that time, that's your birthday. Not the day before. Okay? That's your birth date, not the day before. So that's the day he was unalived. From there, you start counting forward. You don't say he's already lived an entire day. He just was born. He was born 2 hours before the next day started. That doesn't mean he's lived the entire day already, and this is day 2 now. That's the first day. So being unalived, he hasn't been unalived for any time. So the day starts 2 hours or 3 hours after he breathes his last breath is the new day starting. Okay? He's only 2 hours. It doesn't count as a whole day, and it didn't count as a whole day. They counted it as 3 days. Okay, it was actually 2.5 days. Because, and then here's the other thing when people get mad at me when I do this, because if he died at 3:30 p.m., 60 hours later is actually 3:30 a.m. Monday morning. 3:33 to be exact. Okay, Monday morning. Okay, so it's 3 days, right? Yeah, so it's actually 3 days. We just have, we just have a different way of
he's saying you're wrong because the days were counted different back then.
No, they weren't counted different back then. They were just, the time started, instead of midnight, the time started at 6 p.m. Okay, that's it. The day was still the day. They didn't count them different. It wasn't like they said we only had 18 hours in a day. Okay, the days weren't counted any different than they are today. Everybody likes to say that there is no empirical evidence that they changed the way they counted it. But what they did was they changed the dates, and the Hebrews will tell you that we're in the year 3,800 or something like that. But the day was the day, right?
Do they honestly think with everything else they've lied about that wouldn't be a lie?
Yeah, so the day is a day. They didn't count it any different. There's no empirical evidence that they counted a day like 18 hours or something. It's still the same, okay? So what's that? The gospel says that the women came to the tomb on the first day of the week, and he was already arisen. See, so now you're saying the first day of the week was Sunday, even though it was a Sabbath then, the first day of the week. So what you're saying is they edited the Bible in 329 by taking stuff out and rearranging things in the Bible, but that thing they didn't edit. That little ditty they didn't change at all, right? So they claimed that now, the first day of the week, weirdly, because the first day of the week now is actually Monday. It's not Sunday. But it is actually Sunday in most places. Like if you're in America, the first day of the week is Monday. If you're over here, the first day of the week is
Monday.
It's also Monday. Okay. So if you look at the actual, no, Friday doesn't count as a day. You're counting Friday as the first day that he was unalived. He was unalived 2 hours before the day ended. That doesn't mean he was unalived for a whole day already. You're looking at third dimensional semantics and you're trying to apply ideology to it. Well, they counted Friday as the day because that was the day that he said, I will raise this temple to the ground and raise it up again in 3 days. Not, I'm going to do it by the counting of this. Okay. So it just didn't happen that way. They changed it. They changed it because they didn't want people to take another day off. Okay? They changed it. Just like they changed the date of when he was born, just like they changed the date of when he was conceived, just like they changed the everything else. They changed it. They said that Judas was evil and Judas betrayed Jesus. Didn't happen. Jesus picked Judas and told him to do it. Okay? So they changed everything about that. Jesus was married to Mary Magdalene. They had children. Jesus had to be married. They don't acknowledge that. Look at law. Again, you're talking about the Hebrew law and the Hebrew back in the day. Let's look that up. Okay? Talk about that. Let's talk about that, right? So if you're looking, sunset to sunset, it's still a day, bro. It doesn't matter if it's sunset to sunset. In the Irish over in Europe, it was the exact same way. Sunset to sunset. Sunset to sunset is 24 hours. Has nothing to do with midnight and 12 noon. Nothing. I'm not saying that you're caught on a time. The day started at 6 p.m. Okay? That's when it started back then. The day started when the sun went down. That's when the day started. If it was in the summertime, the day would start later. If it was in the wintertime, the day would start earlier. Sundown, it doesn't matter. 24 hours later is sundown. The day is still a day. It doesn't matter where you start counting it. It's still a day. Okay? You don't count if someone becomes unalived 2 hours, you don't say they were dead for a whole day. They weren't. Okay? So you can't say this person rose 3 days later when the person rose 2 days later. Okay? They would have said he rose 2 days after we put him in the tomb. On the third day, after being in the tomb, go back and read the Bible, bro. Put it in the tomb, 3 days later he was risen. Not, well, we counted it because he died on Friday. After he was put in the tomb, he was put in the tomb on Friday. 3 days later, he rose. Okay, they changed it and said it was Sunday, not Sunday. Sunday's when the church was in session, therefore it's the day of Easter, therefore that's when Jesus rose. Has nothing to do with when he actually did. Just like right now, the church will tell you that Jesus was not married to anyone. But to be a rabbi 2,000 years ago in that religion, you had to be married and you had to have children. You couldn't be a rabbi and you couldn't have students. Okay? And if you were the age of 30, you had to also be married in that religion at the time. So Jesus, who taught as a rabbi in the church, had to be known as a rabbi, which means he had to be married. Okay, so who was he married to? Okay, so same thing.
What about Monday? Why do they have Easter Monday?
And yeah, and here's the thing. And here's the thing. I even talked to Brooke about that, and she's bringing that up. If you look on the calendar, why do they have Easter Monday then on a calendar? If Easter is truly only on Sunday, why do they have it on a Monday? Oh, that's the observance. Some people take it off. No, because some people are older Orthodox Christianity, and they believe the resurrection was on a Monday. Look it up. Look it up. The church changed it, so depending on the Christian church that you go to, they're either going to have Easter on Sunday or Easter on Monday. And most places and most churches have Easter on Saturday, don't they? They have Easter on Saturday and Mass for Easter on Sunday. So now Easter is now the whole weekend. Good Friday, Saturdays for the kids and Easter, and then Sunday. See my point? They change things when it suits them. They lied about when Jesus was resurrected by an entire day because it fit the narrative and they didn't want to give people an extra day off. Because if people were taking off Sunday because Saturday was the Sabbath and Sunday was not, they already don't want people taking off Monday now. So what are people going to do? People are going to then want to have Saturday, Sunday, Monday off. Nope. We'll observe Sunday, and that's it. You guys get 2 days off a week. They added Sunday for the church, so people got Saturday, Sunday. Before that, it was only one day. It was Saturday. Okay? And that's the way it was. So you got to look that stuff up. Same thing. They changed it because it was conducive to their way of life. Okay? Right? It's all, yeah, right? Starburst says it's all fake. No, it's not fake, but they have rearranged everything. All right, I'm going to have to go because we're 3 hours, 52 minutes in and our dinner's here. So I love you guys. Make sure that you hit that button. I can't say the words. Hit that button so you know when I go live, because if I say the words on this communist platform, they're afraid of words, and they have a whole list of words that we can't say. Right? I love you guys. I have to write on, yeah, see, and where's Esther? Wait a minute. Wait, Esther 4:16. Where's the book of Esther? Where did that come from? When did that get put back in? All right, guys. Right? So they changed it. The same way that they wrote Mary Magdalene out of the Bible, said she was a hooker. She was married to Jesus. There's empirical proof of that. There's evidence of that. You can look at it still in the Bible. Look up Roman law at the time when Romans torture people and they bleed on their floor. Who has to clean it up? The Romans aren't cleaning it up. Okay, so who cleans the blood up off the floor? The direct family members of the person who is being tortured. So, what's the question? Who cleaned up Jesus' blood? 12 apostles, 9 women that were written out following. No one showed up. None of the people who believed in him that were standing around showed up to do it. Why? Because they couldn't. There was a law. 3 people showed up to clean the blood of Jesus. Who were they? Mary, his mother, Mary Magdalene, and John. John was supposed to be brother to James, and James and John were sons of Zebedee. But Mary is not married to anybody, supposedly. What's she doing there, and what's John doing there? Because they're not related to Jesus. And then people go, well, John was Jesus' cousin. No, that was John the Baptist. John, in the followers of Jesus, and his brother James were actually Jesus' brothers. They were his younger brothers. Uh-oh, look that up in history. Mary was his wife. Mary was not married to John the Baptist. Mary was married to Jesus, and they had children. That's empirical evidence. But they pulled it out, wrote it out of the Bible, and denied it because she was the sacred feminine. Okay? I'm going to leave you with that. Do some research. Look it up. Check that stuff out. Go down that rabbit hole. Tell me I'm wrong. Go down that rabbit hole and look up empirical evidence. And anybody who's Jewish who pops into the crowd, every time I say that, they're like, he's actually telling the truth. That's literal Jewish law at the time. Okay. And Roman law. Those are all written down. You can look them up. I'm not making this stuff up. I'm a theologian. I study this stuff for a living. Okay. All right. I love you guys. I will see you guys. Right. I will see you guys later. Okay. Have a great night. I will see you guys next time. Make sure you hit that bell. Make sure you know when I go live. Follow us. We post videos. I'll cut some of this stuff out. This will go on the podcast. You guys will be able to listen to it over again if you want. Go down that path. Don't believe a word I've said. Read for yourself. Find out these things. Go down the path of asking questions. So, what is it that my wife always says?
Stay curious and ask everything. Oh,
Stay
curious.
Stay curious and question everything. Okay? Stay curious and question everything. Question me, question reality, question your beliefs, question the people who tell you that they know what they're talking about, question the people who say they're the authorities. Question your governments, question everything, question your teachers. All right, guys, I love you guys. Have a great night. I will see you guys next time.